Here.
Mayor Grossman.
Thank you. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your grace to us. You love us and you're with us, you're for us. And Lord, you've blessed us. You've blessed us with leadership. You've blessed us with all kinds of wonderful things. Lord, every good gift comes from you, and you've blessed us with many. And we thank you. And Lord, I pray your grace, I pray your protection upon our servants who serve us, for the police department, for our fire department, Lord, for those who are deployed overseas and those who are deployed here abroad. Lord, I pray you give wisdom to this council. I pray you bless them with insight and wisdom and grace, Lord, to lead us, to direct us, and to bring and to continue your goodness in our hearts and in our lives. We ask for these things in your name. We pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we're so glad that you're joining us tonight, whether you're here in person or you're watching us through live stream, or you're going to catch us later because perhaps you're celebrating Hanukkah tonight at home and you're going to watch us online later or on ICRC-TV.com or on the television, actually. Happy Hanukkah, by the way. We'll be lighting a menorah with Rabbi Kaufmanson tomorrow in the Deerfield Town Center Regal Theater parking lot. So I think some of council will be there tomorrow to celebrate. It'll be drive-through style, so that'll be really interesting. I can't wait to see what he has planned. He always has a wonderful celebration. Well, it's time for item 5 on the agenda, which is the meeting minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the November 9th council meeting and the November 17th council work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? I think we may have an abstention.
Abstain.
Okay, and that's for both meetings, can you remind me? Or was it just the 17th?
Just the 17th.
Just the 17th. Okay, thank you so much, council member. All right, and item 6 is the city manager's report.
Mayor, I actually have several items and not all of them are very exciting. So I'm thinking maybe out of respect for our audience and some more interesting things, if we would move item 8 forward, take action on that. Any other resolutions? And then maybe you could come back to me after that.
That'd be great. Is there a motion to move resolution 2020-18, which is item 8, up to the present time?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Do we need to take a voice vote on that? Okay, all right, let's go forward then. Item 8, which is now item 6, resolution 2020-18. I need a motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Resolution 2020-18, supporting the efforts of the Mason Arts Council.
Eric?
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2020-18 is the result of ongoing discussions with the Mason Arts Council. And over the past 20 months, the Mason Arts Council, and I think several of their board is present here, so they're waiting to correct me maybe. And their president, Tom Huff, is in the audience and would ask him to come to the podium shortly after the vote to share some comments. What this resolution is, it's outlining the continuation of this and the strengthening of this partnership. The Arts Council's goal through working with the city is to bring a comprehensive performing arts center to the city of Mason to advance both the current park system, to increase downtown development, to provide an urban sense of living, to attract residents and businesses to Mason's core, and to help support the local downtown economy. They have an ambitious concept. It involves raising approximately $30 million in private donations for what will be the centerpiece for art in the region. They have worked with and asked the city to join this partnership, and the city and the Arts Council would be committed together to developing avenues for resource sharing, joint programming, co-branding, as well as fundraising to bring this facility to the city of Mason and have it constructed. The city is also committed to working with the Art Center to locate and secure a piece of property that will lead to the success of this joint partnership. Next steps following this resolution commits the city and memorializes our working together on those issues. Next steps would include developing a memorandum of understanding to better identify some of the anticipated commitments, timelines, action steps. This is essentially the first date as we work towards finally marriage with the Arts Council. Through leveraging this partnership, it's anticipated the city will become a hub of culture and education that will have multiple benefits, including increasing tourism, promoting downtown, and further enhancing Mason's economic base. The approval of Resolution 2020-18 provides the city's commitment to that partnership and is hoped that it will enhance the Arts Council's fundraising efforts and move towards securing the ultimate location for this asset.
Thank you. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
Second?
Any council discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to say I'm still very excited about this. This is so great. It's a great opportunity for Mason. It's really going to put us on the map. And I'm really excited to see what happens. So hopefully we can have some work sessions to kind of move this along a little bit. That would be great. But I'm just very excited. It's a great thing. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Mr. Huff, I believe you have something to share? Yes. Definitely worth applauding. You could just state your name and your address for the
My
record.
name is Thomas Huff. I live at 6899 Heritage Club Drive in Mason. I've been a resident of Mason now for 22 years. I have the privilege of being the president of the Mason Arts Council. And on behalf of the Mason Arts Council, I would like to express our appreciation for this unanimous vote to support our goals. In particular, the construction of the Mason Center Regional Arts Center for the Arts. It's an ambitious project that will benefit so many people in our geographical area. With your support of this resolution, we can move forward into our partnership negotiation for the land upon which we will build this facility. As I've stated many times, there'll be nothing to compare with our facility anywhere in Southwest Ohio and probably in the entire Midwest area. The confidence that you've shown with this unanimous vote says so much about the City Council's willingness to pull together for this great opportunity. The board members of the Mason Arts Council have put in thousands of hours preparing for this vote this evening. This is real big to us. We really appreciate it. To the citizens of Mason and the surrounding communities, we promise to dedicate ourselves to the accomplishment of this mission. As time goes on, we will involve all of the communities in our decision-making process as to the entertainment and educational venues that we will hope to include in this wonderful facility. Now's the time where we start our partnership with the City of Mason as to the location and timing. We look forward to this process. Having great partners will make this ambitious project a lot more fun. We all know that downtown Mason needs a shot in the arm right now. This should be just a thing that will help us move into the future development opportunities that are in front of us. In closing, on behalf of the Mason Arts Council, we will work diligently to justify your confidence shown tonight. Thank you very much. Mayor, if it'd be all right, I would like to bring our board members up front, perhaps.
Yes,
We could
please do.
that.
Let's get a photo, and we have a gift for you, a framed resolution.
So Karen Kilgore, Kim Martin, Rich Bailey, Kimberly Wanamaker, Renee Collins, Nicole Johnson, Chris Kahn, Terry Smith, Evans Nwanko, and Dirk Doberreiner. So if you all come up.
Council, could you join us? Thank you all so much. We appreciate you so much. I won't take the time to read the resolution simply because Eric covered practically everything in it in his memo that he read to all of us in his description. But it's wonderful to see you all here. We bequeath this to you with pride and anticipation and excitement and gratitude. You're very welcome.
At this time, the Vice President, Karen Kilgore, would like to present City Council with our partnership plaque. And she
May I
wanted,
read this?
she wanted to say something as well.
Good evening. I'm Karen Kilgore, Vice President of the Board of Directors for the Mason Art Council. It has been my pleasure to be involved with the Mason Art Council, or MAC, since its inception. I've served as president and passionate advocate for the arts through my role as president of Royal Theater Company, where we've been working toward this vision in creating an art center for many years. In those efforts, I've had the privilege of meeting and collaborating with art leaders throughout our region, and I'm honored to represent the local arts community through MAC. On behalf of our Board of Directors of the Mason Art Council, we want to thank you each, and we want to acknowledge our new partnership in the development of the Mason Regional Center for the Arts. Your support through the unanimous resolution reflects our shared vision with the Mason City Council to celebrate and to foster the development and growth of the arts in our community. Mason has been a center for the communities driven art organizations for decades, showcasing diversity, artistic expression of all types. This resolution shows continued efforts and commitment to form partnerships to expand the arts, improve the quality of life, and positively impact economical growth in our great community. Would you hold this for 1 second, since I have 2 pages and 2 hands? And a microphone. The creation of the Mason Regional Center for the Arts will no doubt have significant and long-lasting impact on our region. Please accept this with our gratitude, this commemorative plaque celebrating our partnership in the future of the Mason Regional Arts Center. Thank you all very much.
Just beautiful. Thank you. We're going to get a group photo to commemorate this, and we'll just carefully we need to create 2 rows, I think, if we can. As they say in the theater, find your window. I think we need to change our plaque style. I like this.
Do you mind if we get a digital? In the center.
Very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was such a wonderful celebration, but I'm afraid we're going to have to discuss something rather serious now. There was some very important legislation left off of the agenda. Our sincere apologies. I understand it's the city manager's fault, and he is going to have to untangle all of the city's Christmas lights next year as a consequence. That was Jennifer Heff's idea. Okay, so, and he has to fluff the garlands. But I digress. I have some special helpers here to help us correct this terrible circumstance and get this resolution on the agenda. But before we can add it to the agenda, I'm going to need a motion as such. Is there a member who can make that motion?
I'd love to make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Could Santa's helpers please come up and sit with your dads? And they have the legislation prepared for you. And we do need a motion to read it by title only. As the kids are moving, could I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
This is Resolution 2020-19, encouraging Santa to visit all local children to spread Christmas joy, magic, and cheer.
Wonderful. Children, can you start with the whereases? I think they've worked it out.
Whereas it is intention of Santa to spread Christmas joy to all and remind everyone of goodwill and selfless giving in the city of Mason across the world, and
whereas as Mason's residents are asked to help keep the community safe by practicing health, COVID-19 protocols, and recommendations, residents are encouraged to visit the city website at www.imaginemason.org to find unique and fun virtual activities to share and spread the community holiday spirit.
Whereas Mason City Council encourages Santa and his 9 reindeer led by Rudolph, his red-nosed and Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen to return to Mason on December 24th, 2020, and whereas is by the power of those who believe that Santa may visit and bless the city of Mason with Christmas joy and cheer, and whereas Mason City Council wishes Santa and his reindeer a safe flight.
Say that again.
Whereas Mason City Council wishing Santa and his reindeers a safe flight. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Mason, Ohio, that 7 members elect third concurring.
Section 1, that Santa should visit the household of all of the good boys and girls within the city of Mason corporate limits and beyond. Section 2, that every Mason child has tried their very hardest to be good.
Section 3, that Mason community continues to share the power to believe.
Section 4, that as we celebrate this season, we keep in minds of those who within our community that may struggling without family or in need to provide a helping of hand of kindness.
Section 5, that this resolution shall be enforced and become effective from and after the earliest period allowed by law. Passed this 14th day of December 2020.
Merry Christmas.
Very good.
Very good.
How about a round of applause? Wow, kids, that was so great. We really appreciate your help. Council, I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Any council discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
Hey, that was totally impromptu. So they showed up here tonight. They did not know they'd be reading that. You guys crushed it. You guys did an excellent job. And now I'm extremely happy because Santa can come to Mason. So you guys can go back to school. Well, yeah, you can go back to school and tell them that you guys actually passed an ordinance that Santa's coming to Mason. So well done. Great job. We appreciate you guys coming in and helping out.
Wow, I hope it passes. We still have to vote. Any other council discussion? I hope it passes. Oh, city manager?
In recognition and maybe in correcting the mistake, they did such a great job. We have a little prelude for Santa for those kids that helped.
That's so wonderful.
Maybe that helps the vote.
You guys deserve that for coming in a time of crisis to help us.
Jennifer probably thought of that too, though, Eric.
Yeah, she did.
Have fun untangling those lights. All right. Well, I think we have no more council discussion, so we should call the roll.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We're so pleased to have our guests here. We have Colleen. This is Colleen, if you can see her on the camera. She's our favorite photographer and captures all the fun things that are going on here at the city. Well, I believe it's now time for the city manager's report. If Eric, you're ready, if you've recovered.
I'm as ready as I can be.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Try and move through this quickly. On council's agenda tonight is adoption of the 2021 appropriation ordinance or budget. Assuming adoption of that, our second meeting falls on December 28th and would no longer be necessary once the budget's adopted. A motion eliminating that meeting would be appropriate.
I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? I'm sorry, I was distracted. What was the motion for?
We're not meeting on December 28th.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Also, just to announce, I think it was mentioned earlier, the Jewish Discovery Center is hosting a Hanukkah celebration drive-through event on Tuesday, December 15th, 5:30 p.m. It's at the Deerfield Town Center, and council has been especially invited to attend by Rabbi Yosef Kalmanson. Also wanted to provide an update quickly on the city small business recovery efforts and we've talked about this several times, the e-gift card program that council authorized. With the second round that went out in early November, the city has made approximately $855,000 available to the small business community through the first rounds of those programs. I would encourage all residents, in order to secure those dollars to the benefit of the participating small businesses, those gift cards need to be used. It does not help the business if you keep that gift card unused. The funds do not get utilized. The expiration date on those is March 31st, 2021, and there are 78 small businesses currently participating in that. So please utilize those gift cards. In addition to the Come Together e-gift card program, the city with the CIC earlier this month reopened the Forgivable Loan and Service Agreement program, which the city had undertaken with the CIC earlier this summer. There had been a remaining balance of $163,500 in that program, and the downtown committee and then the CIC concurred to reopen the application window to try and utilize those remaining funds. That means that folks that were not able to participate in that original round under the same conditions now have an opportunity that closes on December 16th at 4:30 p.m. So we encourage any folks that did not participate in the first round to take advantage of that opportunity. As long as funds are available and to the extent our funds are available, we hope to distribute all of those to either new applicants, or if there should be any remaining funds left after the new applicants succeed, any remaining amount would be distributed to all successful participants in both the earlier round and the second round. The city's reimaginemason.org website has been updated with all that information. The 16th is coming. Would encourage folks to participate. Also, city offices will be closed on Thursday, December 24th, as well as Friday, December 25th, and Friday, January 1st, in observance of the Christmas and New Year's holidays. And then, for simplicity's sake, This does have an impact on holiday waste and recycling because Christmas falls on Friday, December 25th, and New Year's falls on Friday, January 1st. Waste and recycling removal will only be disrupted for that Friday. So if your waste pickup is on a Friday, you want to set it out on Saturday. All other days will be the same, but Friday moves to Saturday. Also, the city will begin Christmas tree pickup. That'll begin on Monday, January 4th. Residents should place their live trees at curbside for pickup. If they are placed in bags, then those trees will be picked up by Rumpke and will not be recycled by the city. I have two other items, a liquor permit, which is a transfer of ownership to Philly Petroleum doing business as Joe Mart, is for a C2 and C2X, which is wine and certain prepackaged mixed drinks in sealed containers for carryout only until 1 a.m. and beer only in original sealed containers for carryout only until 1 a.m. Council can request a hearing or not request a hearing and do that via motion.
Make a motion, we not request a hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed?
Next is another application involving liquor, but this is what's called a Trex application. This has not reached the stage where it's gone to the Liquor Commission for council to request a hearing, not request a hearing. This is an opportunity for the city to allow an additional liquor permit to be situated in the city of Mason. This would be for a new business, Dulsat Bistro, located at 7876 Mason Montgomery Road. They are seeking the city's endorsement for a Trex liquor transfer of a D5 permit that would allow the reopening of what is currently a vacant storefront and additional retail activity in that portion of the city. What a Trex permit allows is that a permit that otherwise wouldn't be residing in the city to be located in the city of Mason, which would allow them to secure a liquor permit that otherwise wouldn't be available. The city has the discretion to allow that, to endorse that transfer as part of economic development efforts. You also have the latitude to not select that. The city has done this probably a handful of times in the past. This application is being made, has been reviewed by legal counsel, and with a motion from council, the Trex transfer can be accomplished. What that means is then it would then come at a subsequent meeting for the actual request for whether a city would like a hearing. This is the point when you have discretion. The next time you would be choosing whether to ask the state to have a hearing.
Could you guide us on the appropriate motion?
A motion authorizing the city manager to approve a Trex agreement.
Is there such a motion from council?
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay.
Give me one moment. I think that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item on our agenda is recognition of visitors. Do we have any visitors online that wish to be recognized? Okay. And do we have any visitors in the audience? I know Commissioner Grossman came to present an update on Warren County's small business recovery efforts at the county level. Would it be okay if he goes first real quick and we'll get that out of the way? And then we have at least one person here in the building. Oh, come on up, Commissioner. We'll get that business out of the way, and then we'll hear from our next guest. Since the commissioner was here for our Burn the Mortgage party anyways, I asked him to give us an update on the last time he presented, which the topic was small business recovery efforts at the Warren County level with federal money and the proposal to reopen their program, and they did so successfully. So if you're ready, you can state your name and address and tell us what you've got.
Tom Grossman at 4533 Morris Court, Mason, Ohio. And so when I came here last time, we had the Veterans Day ceremony. I'm sorry, is this not on? Oh, seldom do I have that problem. So, and I reported to you on the fact that we were reopening our program. Our program application period for COVID relief was open from October 1 to October 31st. We had additional monies. So I came in and I announced that we are reopening that for the period from November 10 through November 17th. And I'm now, and by the way, one of the questions, some of the questions asked before or during that meeting were about whether when we unencumbered funds and allowed it to flow through to the cities and the townships and the villages in Warren County for additional funding that we didn't use, whether or not you all had to encumber it by November 20th, which you didn't have to. And I believe, and maybe Eric can confirm this, because we did have additional funds that were then distributed on a per capita basis through every jurisdiction that had used up all of their CARES Act funds. And I believe Mason got what, $155,000 more from us. Is that correct?
Exact number, but the city was successful in securing those funds.
Right. So that's approximately the money that flowed through just to Mason. The next largest amount went to Deerfield because it's the largest jurisdiction. In addition, when we originally had this program opened up in the first round, there were 138 small businesses, both profit and nonprofit, that made applications. And that was for the entire month of October. After we opened it up for another 8 days, we had an additional 68 applications just in that 8-day period. Interestingly enough, in the first round, of the entities in the 45040 zip code, there were 54 of the 138 were from Mason and Deerfield. In the second round of that we opened just for 8 days, we had another 30 applications from Mason and Deerfield, 30. And there were a total of 94 people that applied, but some didn't meet our application criteria and others we're working on to see if we can get them to meet the application criteria. But about, I don't think, 32 to 33% of the population in Warren County is in the 45040 zip code. But in the first round, 46.6% of all applications were from that zip code. In the second round, 44.11% were from that zip code. So there was a great amount of participation in Mason and Deerfield. And I wanted to mention one thing, because the vast majority of people were very thankful for the program, as you might imagine. And but in the second round, when we opened it up, we heard from one entity from Mason that was upset with the fact that the application period, he'd received direct notice on November 10th. But he didn't make application and didn't hear about for this person until afterwards. And he was very upset that the application period was only 8 days. And we were able to, but he felt that that was way too short, that it had to be longer, but he was not aware apparently that we had a first 31-day period. And we then went back to Mason, because most of the people that we communicated with through the jurisdictions like Mason, because we had contact through our economic development department for numbers of small businesses, but we didn't have nearly all the small businesses, and both profit and nonprofit, to reach out to. So we reached out to newspapers. We reached out to every jurisdiction, every township, and every city, and every chamber of commerce in Warren County to get them to publicize our program. And Mason did that. And Mason has something interesting, because we went back to them and we asked the city to tell us how they communicated the program, because we were able to directly communicate with this particular company on November 10th, because we received the data on addresses that Mason used. And then we incorporated that, and we then communicated with that entity directly because we used Mason's address. Well, it turns out you guys were able to go back and identify that that particular company had been communicated with on October 8th. And not only that, I don't know how you all do this, because I don't understand the technology, but you also knew how many times the person who received that email or that blast, that constant contact, how many times they opened it. So we were able to communicate with them and tell them not only they received the information on October 8th, but they even opened the particular address, which helped to clarify that. But our goal was to make sure as many people could apply as possible. And the fact that we had so many people, so many companies, 68 total, it was almost half the number in the first 31 days applied again. The other thing that we did that I didn't report on last time is that we decided to help all the schools, both public and private, in Warren County, and to provide them with aid as well. And in doing that, we went out to all the public schools and entities first, and we provided a total of over $3 million to the public and private schools in Warren County. And that included $500,000 to the private schools. But interestingly enough, you might be interested to know who was the largest recipient school system in Warren County for the COVID relief that we provided to the county. Do you have any guesses who it was? It was Mason High School. And not Mason High School, but Mason School District. They received a total of, I'll find it here, $1.22 million. So they were very gracious with that. They invited Dave Young and myself and Matt Nolan to come to their meeting last week to thank us. They were more than twice the amount of the next highest recipient of aid in the schools. So we want to thank all of your assistance in communicating with your contacts, because it resulted in a tremendous amount of participation from Mason companies. We also found out in reviewing this, because we reviewed before we even started the program, we wanted to know who was doing programs locally. And as you know, Mason had the largest program in Ohio per capita for any COVID relief programs. But we also discovered that a large number of the recipients of COVID relief from the county were also recipients from multiple programs that Mason provided. So if you have any questions, that's what we did. And we'll be concluded with distributing the money probably by next week.
Thank you very much for that follow-up report. Any questions?
Mayor, I have a question for Eric. So that additional $155,000, do we have to pass an ordinance to roll it in with the $163,500 that we're distributing out? Or do we not have to pass an ordinance? Is that how we're distributing that money out?
No, that money was already encumbered. Now, if council wishes, encumbered for uses that qualified.
Got it. Okay.
Council wishes, you would need legislation if you wish to increase the 163,500.
Okay. So we can use it on encumbered expenses and got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only restrictions, Member Nelson, are that you have to use it consistent with the federal guidelines. Okay.
I'll ask you a question about the expenses on schools. What were the three main categories schools had to use that federal money for?
Well, all of it had to be related to COVID. And so they were permitted to expend monies on personal protection equipment. They were permitted to spend it for the remote learning or the electronic learning or the, where they were having students or getting them into school without being in school, and for other expenses of keeping students safe while they're at school, they could do that. And then finally, there were certain unemployment benefits or benefits to their employees that were the result of COVID that we were allowed to reimburse them for. And as I said, the total amount, those are the three basic categories, were the remote learning or the COVID-related learning expenses, the personal protection equipment, and certain employee costs. So those are the three ways we studied carefully, because we had to meet the federal guidelines and how the money could be spent. And the schools were very they were overjoyed. They separately received money that they spent, but they didn't have enough money many of them didn't have enough to compensate them for all those expenses, and we were able to supplement that.
Great. I know that our district was very grateful, and we're very grateful that they've remained open, and our kids are too. Thank you for preparing all of that for us. Anybody else have a question?
What I was going to say on the schools, the feeling, I mean, we did not have to spend anything on the schools, but the county commissioners felt that the schools and the quality of schools, both public and private in Warren County, are very, very important to the quality of our life, to our businesses, to encouraging growth and the vibrancy of our community, to encourage good companies to come into our county. And for that reason, we felt that it was important to help support those schools during this period.
Thanks. I listened to some of your dialogues, and it was interesting to hear Matt Nolan, our county auditor, guiding you with his legal opinion on how the monies were to be spent. And I thought it was great that you guys opened it back up so that more direct aid could go to small businesses and nonprofits. And my understanding is local jurisdictions, the easiest thing to do is to maybe put it in their fire and safety fund, those federal dollars. And so if you guys hadn't done the second round, it would have gone back to local jurisdictions, but it wouldn't have gone directly to these small businesses and nonprofits in the schools the way it did. So I was glad that you reopened it for another week or so that you could get more involvement.
It was a phenomenal success in the sense that we had so many more. I mean, you literally had almost, like I said, there was 206 total entities that received awards or that made application. And we literally a third of that came in the last 8 days because we opened it up again. Because what we found was that many people didn't know about the program, didn't hear about the program. They weren't familiar with the program. They didn't think they would qualify because they qualified for other programs. And we were at a restaurant the other night where they'd applied for the payroll protection plan, but they didn't know about Mason's program. They didn't know about it. You encouraged them to apply again because of the fact that you opened up your forgivable loan program. But they didn't apply for the Warren County program, which they could have applied for and received probably $5,000. But many people didn't know about it. But once that word got out again, there was and I think that probably you all were successful in helping to advertise it, as was the chamber and as again was the city. And that resulted in a much larger, more significant participation, which was really key to making this program a success. Thank you again for your help and that. And I think that right now, I think we're finished. Probably this week, all the applications will be gone through, and those people that are eligible, and almost everybody was eligible that applied. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor?
If I could ask a follow-up question, Commissioner Grossman. I think you said that Warren County opened it up to schools and that other counties didn't do that. Certainly there are 88 counties in Ohio. I'm wondering if you have any knowledge of how many counties in Ohio actually went out and supported the schools the way that Warren County did.
What we did was we examined the different counties that were helping businesses and small business program. So we collected that data, and we were interested in finding out how we compared with other jurisdictions, but we didn't look at the schools because originally we were not planning on doing anything with the schools. But what happened was that there was a suggestion that we pay for mobile vehicles to go around, set up tents, and with electronic devices to give people that weren't going in class to go and have the opportunity to be, where they couldn't connect somehow. They were at a home that didn't have connection to the web or something like that. And then we asked, are the schools asking for this? It was a very expensive program. It was almost $1 million to do this that we were being asked to do. And that led us to say, look, we'd like to hear from all of the school superintendents, all of the school districts and the private schools as to what they want. The following week, every single school system in Warren County came to the commission meeting, and and that included, Mason, of course. And they all wanted us to help them with PPE, with the remote learning that they'd already been investing in, and with their employment costs. And so that's what we did. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. I know we have someone else waiting to come on up. You're welcome to come and join us, and please state your name and address when you reach the podium. We're glad you're here.
Masks off, okay. Good evening, my name is Josh Blatt. I live at 6590 Tupelo Lane, Cincinnati 45243. So tough acts to follow tonight. Kids with their Santa, which was very cute and nice, and the Mason Arts Council, which what they're doing and the city's doing with them is absolutely terrific, and for downtown especially. As I said, good evening. My name is Josh Blatt. Many of you I know, we worked together. My brother and I developed Mason Oaks Townhomes downtown a few years ago. We worked with many of you and a few new faces, but so we appreciate having a couple minutes to speak with you guys tonight. We've been open for about a year now. Our project, I assume everybody's familiar with it, it's 44 luxury townhouses. And since we've been open, our response has been terrific. We've been really, really pleased with how it's been received by the public, and we're staying almost full. And in fact, it's been so well received. We sent a letter to Eric and to council expressing an interest in purchasing city-owned ground next to us to expand our project by an additional 20 units and continuing that transition along Mason Montgomery Road into downtown, and really tying the two together and getting people downtown. For those of you who aren't familiar, when we first started our project, sorry, the echo of the microphone, there was really nothing going on downtown at all. We purchased a site that had been sitting vacant forever. Just about every single residential developer in town had looked on the site and passed on the site, including people tried to make it a city-rama site for the Home Builders Association. But we took a chance. We purchased it. We came in. We paid market price for it. We were able to work with the city to get it rezoned for our townhouse project, and we were capped out with a density of 8 units per acre. At the time, like I said, there was nothing going on downtown, nothing at all. The city wanted more density downtown, and that's why you guys were willing to give us the 8 units per acre. We asked for support from the city. We asked, could we get tax abatements? This was a very risky project for us. And we were told that the city of Mason does not support tax abatements for residential development at all. We will not do it. When you see our project, we've got gorgeous townhouses along Mason Montgomery Road. We asked the city for support to move the power lines underground, something that we've done in other projects before to enhance our project. Again, we were told, no, the city does not support residential projects. We're not going to give you any money. We ended up at our expense, it was thousands of dollars to lower a utility pole in front of our project so we could drop the wall down to enhance the streetscape, which benefits our site, but it also benefits that transition coming into downtown. So in fact, going a step further in terms of cost, not only do we not get any incentives from the city or any support, we were required as part of our development plan to put a sidewalk from Mason Montgomery Road across our property, a 10-foot wide sidewalk. It's a public walk that'll eventually connect through the property next to us and into Heritage Park. So no incentives. We're required to actually expend additional money for a sidewalk through our project that doesn't benefit us. So why am I telling you all, and why am I here today? Because we were really disturbed to see the last special meeting that the city is considering giving away ground right next to our site, and then giving away millions of dollars of tax abatements for a project next to ours. We're willing to pay market price for the ground. We're willing to develop the ground without tax abatements. And we think it's really unfair and wrong that the city would develop this site or even encourage development on it on terms differently than we asked for when there was nothing going on downtown. You know, we've started the process downtown. We've shown downtown development can be successful at market price and without tax abatements. We have no issue, by the way, with the developer you're talking to. They're very talented. They've had tremendous success in other projects. And if you elect to go with them versus us, they'll do a fine job. This is about what is right, what's appropriate for us and for the community. I mean, it doesn't make sense that the community would give away ground for free and millions of dollars of tax abatements when other people would pay market price for the ground and do an equally fine project. So again, we have an offer on the table to the city. I think you guys all have a copy of it. And our request is we would like a seat at the table. We would like to be given the opportunity to fully vet our project. And again, we just don't think any site should be given, that this site is appropriate for a tax abatement or for a free land giveaway. So appreciate your time. I'm happy to answer any questions, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blatt. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr.
You know,
Chance.
I don't necessarily have any questions, but, you know, we've been going around and around in circles with this discussion. And, you know, from looking at the city of Mason, right? And first, I want to thank you for jumping in and like you said, being the first to the table to do something back there just north of that property. And I love to hear the success there and to hear the success that it was with market price, no abatements, extra cost, and you're still coming to the table. I think that says something about Mason. That might be something a little different than other communities that our developer that we're talking to speaks to. So for me, again, thank you for showing up and understanding that, you know, we are in a little different scenario and that you recognize that these projects can be done to where it's beneficial for a developer, it's beneficial for the city, for the residents, for the business community. And, you know, I just major kudos. Thank you. And I definitely think you should have a seat at the table. And I think we should open it up for a lot of people to have a seat at the table. I don't think we've had a process put in place to vet projects like yours. Like, what do we want?
By the way, we love abatements, but no,
Yeah, right.
not after a
I'd love to
market.
win the lottery, right?
But no, abatements after a market rate project is in next door working. It doesn't make sense to have an abatement after the fact. If an abatement was done for our project to get it going and get things started, it makes sense. But after the fact, it's not appropriate.
Yep. Well, I just think, you know, you bringing this to the table and lighten, you know, kind of our process up that we haven't, you know, fully vetted. I appreciate you doing that because I think that is something we as a council need to put something in place to vet these type of projects, to understand what do we want? Do we have to do this? Are we forced to, you know, have to, you know, give away this, that, or abate this, that? So like I said, I appreciate you coming tonight and your willingness to stand up here and say, well, wait a minute. I did one just north of it. I'm willing to do it again on the exact same terms. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Josh.
Mayor, thank you. But I'm pretty sure that the city manager instructed all of us to not maybe have a comment on this. Can I ask the law director, Jeff, do you know, is it appropriate for us to discuss this in this forum?
I didn't even know Josh was coming tonight. So I don't think the city manager instructed me to say or not to say anything. Did you know? Yes. You did? I was not informed. This is the first I saw Josh or spoken to Josh in, I don't know, 3 years, like you mentioned. So I didn't even know he was coming. Just full disclosure. I genuinely appreciate you showing up.
Jeff, do you care to comment?
I guess all I could tell council at this point is, you know, residents are free to address council during this portion of the meeting. Council members can engage with those folks, but at this point, it would be improper to discuss any specifics of any kind of development or any sort of deal, so to speak, with that. And for at least one reason is that council has already directed the manager to negotiate with another party. So it would be improper to have any kind of discussions related to the specifics of any kind of deal because we've already been directed in a different direction. But at this point, there's nothing improper about anybody coming up to address council and council responding to that so far.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for coming up. As we said in our last meeting, we really do need to open it up for developers like you. I mean, you already built property. We never gave you a tax abatement. You paid for everything on your own: streets, utilities, taxes, property. I completely agree. We need to open this up to developers and vet it, because just to give property away to anyone, you know, that's not the right thing to do with tax dollars, and I don't think our taxpayers would appreciate it. So thank you, for stepping up to the plate and, willing to purchase it and develop it. We do appreciate that. And hopefully we have a process soon, for other developers to come forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Blatt, thank you so much. I met you when I was new to council as you were trying to navigate getting the Mason Oaks project off the ground, and it didn't have unanimous support from the Planning Commission at that time. And you were kind enough to take, I think, all of us or most of us from council on a tour of some of your other projects and to show us how it works. And then, the project passed and you've been able to develop this beautiful project. So we congratulate you on that. And I understand from all accounts, it was a positive experience for staff and for you to work together. And I also had the pleasure of meeting with you and your brother, John, right? John, at your offices in Blue Ash. And John took me on a tour of Blue Ash and showed me some of the results of the CRA that is in Blue Ash, and you referred to that in your letter to council and how their new home is being built as these neighborhoods are aging. There are some tax incentives for tearing down old homes and rebuilding new homes on those older streets in Blue Ash, and it looks great. And so I believe that was January of 2019. I remember it was snowy, and I immediately set up a meeting with our staff and asked about how can we develop some kind of programming or incentives for residential developments. And I knew at that time you guys didn't get a CRA because we didn't have anything like that set up. And so it was brand new, and staff listened and the dialogue began. And there's always got to be a first time for a CRA, but I wanted you to know that I asked, is there any way we can do something retroactive to because they took the first risk, and there isn't a legal way to do something retroactively, sadly. And I asked more than once and bugged Jeff about it quite a bit. But so I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that we didn't have that in place at that time, but I still am grateful for the risk that you took. And I'm glad to hear you're almost at capacity already.
We're almost at capacity.
That's fantastic. And they're beautiful townhomes with beautiful finishes inside. And it's just a lovely development. So we thank you for that. I'm glad you came in to share with us today.
Thank you. Your support also was very helpful to us. So coaching even. So thank you guys.
Yeah. Any other visitors? Okay, anybody online? Okay. Okay, great. So, Mr. Chambers, Dan, are we on item 9 or 10 right now? If we move along, ordinance 113.
Correct.
So is that item 9 or will it, okay, so we're back to the regular numbers. Okay, so item 9 on the agenda, ordinance 2020-113. Sorry, we moved some things around. I wanted to make sure that I was on track. I need a motion to read that by title only.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Approval of the final plats for Ambleside Meadows phases 3D and 6.
Kurt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is for, as Jeff said, Ambleside 3D and 6. 3D is located towards the eastern portion of the subdivision. It contains 22 single-family lots, 2 open space lots, and it is just over 65 acres. This is the area that has a large open space. There's a large hill back there that has a natural walkway through it, a forested area. It's also where there's a large stormwater retention pond and a portion of the hiker-biker path that'll connect over to the new trail that we're building through Lebanon's property over to the Lebanon YMCA property and to the Little Miami Trail. Section 6 is the last section in the subdivision. This subdivision actually started in September 2016, and this is actually the last plat in the entire subdivision, 314 lots total. This section has 19 single-family lots and 2 open space lots, and it's just about 12 acres. Planning Commission at the October and December Planning Commission meetings recommended approval contingent on a subdivider's contract and bond, and these will dedicate the right-of-way, utilities, storm, necessary easements to build these streets. So with that, ordinance 2020-113 is recommended for adoption. I'll answer any questions that you have.
I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt.
So moved again.
Any council discussion? Any questions for Kurt? All right, let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Item 10 on the agenda, ordinance 2020-114. I need a motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with RE Middleton Construction LLC in the amount of $85,339 for the Mason Municipal Center sidewalk replacement project.
Jennifer?
Yes, Mayor, members of council, earlier this evening, we had the opportunity to participate in an event where we burnt the mortgage for the municipal center. Lots of great comments from staff and others about what this facility has meant to the community. One of the things that was brought up at the meeting was how well maintained the center is. And it is, believe it or not, the center is now 18 years old. We have worked hard to keep it in the shape that it is in. But over the years, like any facility, it does age and requires some additional repairs and maintenance. We've changed out the lights in the facility to LED lights. We've replaced carpet. We're starting to change out some wall coverings here and there, just noticing dings and stuff in the walls. We've done a lot of mechanical work, and we'll probably continue to do so as those systems, again, as they age. This past or several years ago, we noticed that the concrete out front was lifting, and we brought a company in to help us correct the safety issues that we felt were occurring out there. We started developing a plan to replace that concrete. There's a significant amount of concrete throughout the site that the facility sits on. So we need to develop a plan. It could be quite costly. My mic's cutting in and out. Sorry about that. So we did correct the lifting issue. It continues. We went in and did a phase 1 where we replaced all of the concrete out that's located on the east side of the building near the flagpoles. That was done several years ago. More recently earlier this year, we took a look at the bollards out front, the concrete around those. Needs replaced. The lights themselves don't work. Many of them don't work. The repair parts we cannot even get anymore. So we looked at the opportunity to replace not only those bollards, but the ones at the community center that are faced the same issue in conjunction with the new aquatic center and McKeno Park, and bringing a consistent look to the bollards and all. We also thought we could see a cost savings if we took quotes on replacing at all those facilities. And we were able to save about roughly 50% in doing that. So council approved ordinance 2020-38 for those bollards. At that time, we brought in some concrete companies to take a look at the concrete that would need to be replaced when we did the bollard work. Unfortunately, they indicated to us because of the infrastructure in place for the bollards, we would need to do more concrete work than we anticipated. So this legislation before you tonight does replace about 8,000 square feet of concrete work on the east side of the building. And it will also install the new bollards that were approved with the previous legislation. We met with 3 different concrete companies. One of them has so much work to do currently that they did not provide us a quote. 2 others did. R.E. Middleton LLC is a mason company that has performed many concrete projects in the city, including our annual sidewalk replacement program. With that, ordinance 114 is recommended for adoption. We do anticipate that the work will begin spring of 2021.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Did anybody have to Google bollard when they were reading the memo? I admit it, I did. A bollard is, you want to tell them what a bollard is so that people at home don't have to Google it, just for fun?
You probably should ask the engineer, but I will make an attempt at this and he can correct me. It is the light posts that are also serve as safety features so that vehicles do not enter the front door of the building. And so they provide some protection out there and for pedestrians and others that are coming along walkways.
Yep, so they're like concrete cylinders or rectangles that provide barriers. Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you. Thank you for humoring me. All right, any other council discussion or questions? Let's call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
Item 11 is ordinance 2020-115. I need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Amending ordinance number 2019-141, establishing the positions and rates of compensation for employees of the Mason Municipal Court.
Rick.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 2020-115 is largely a housekeeping item. It is a little bit unique. What this does is it authorizes modifications to the compensation for Mason Municipal Court. The city does not set the pay rate. Well, individual pay rates for court employees are set by court with the judge's authority. But because the city is responsible for providing the payroll services for municipal court, city staff needs the authorization to pay the amounts that the judge sets, essentially. What council has done over the years is put together this ordinance, which sets out the authorized pay amounts for city to process for court. And what court then asks and is asking this year is for a 4% increase to the ceilings for those amounts. That by itself does not set any individual's pay rates or authorize any increases because that belongs to the court's authority. But this authorizes staff to set those ceilings. The exhibit that you have there, it sets forth both individual compensation ceilings by position and then overall compensation by funding type. Some of the positions are funded by the city's obligation through the general fund, and then there are court special funds where other positions are authorized for the pay. This ordinance authorizes city staff to process the payroll for all of those funds, but not to exceed the ceilings that are listed in the ordinance. This is becoming an annual ordinance that council authorizes, and it is recommended for adoption.
I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing there is none, let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Item 12 is ordinance 2020-116. I need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with CDWG for purchases related to the Mason Municipal Aquatic Center in an amount not to exceed $145,000.
Jennifer?
Yes, Mayor, members of council, I'm going to cover ordinance 2020-116 through 2020-121, if you don't mind. They're all related to the new aquatic center. We are fortunate enough that that facility is coming along pretty much on schedule. We completed most of the construction for the leisure pool, and actually we're able to host a small very small, but an opening for that center, not something that we would typically hold for a new public facility of that magnitude. But some guests were able to get out there and enjoy the facility. It did not have a lot of the amenities required of the facility, but this ordinance will help make sure that we do move forward a lot of those items. So when we open in hopefully in May next year, we'll have the items that our residents and others can enjoy. So with that, ordinance 2020-116 is for infrastructure needed for various computer systems, including the phone system, access, security, and autos, and the audio system. It is really the infrastructure for all the other systems to operate off of. That contract is with CDW-G in an amount not to exceed $145,000. Ordinance 2020-117 authorizes a contract with Dell. That's primarily for the office computers as well as some digital signage in the amount of $37,000. Ordinance 2020-118 authorizes a contract with Shiver Security Services in the amount of $205,000 for security, access, and cameras. That's pretty much all the technology. Ordinance 2020-119 is the more important stuff. It authorizes a contract with Outdoor Furniture Restoration in the amount of $68,000 for purchase of 300 lounge chairs as well as 100 sand chairs. Some additional furniture such as tables, umbrellas, and chairs were already included in the construction contract. Ordinance 2020-120 authorizes a contract with Loth in the amount of $30,000 for the purchase of office furnishings, including desks, tables, chairs, whiteboards, lecterns, and other items needed to furnish the community room, membership services office, as well as the lifeguard room and some of the office space for the 50-meter competition pool. Ordinance 2020-121 authorizes city manager to enter into contract with Blinds Plus for blinds for the community room and other areas of the facility. We do believe that this completes a significant amount of purchases needed for items at the new aquatic center, especially as it relates to the leisure pool. We do believe, like any new facility, when you move in, there is going to come up some additional item, maybe some additional directional signage and things like that to help our patrons get to where they need to go. All the items in here were purchased through a cooperative purchasing program or through a competitive process. Another item I'd like to point out is that the city's concession contract with Comet's Pizza has expired, and staff will be working on preparing an RFP to let that out to interested parties. We expect that to be early spring so that we have concession operations for the new aquatic center when it opens in May. With that, ordinance 2020-116 through 2020-121 is recommended for adoption. If there is any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, very convenient to be able to bundle these together, but we'll take each ordinance one by one. So we're with ordinance 116. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Item 13 is ordinance 2020-117. I need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Dell for purchases related to the Mason Municipal Aquatic Center in an amount not to exceed $37,000.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Council discussion. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes. Item 14 is ordinance 2020-118. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
All in favor? Any
Yes.
opposed? Jeff.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Shiver Security Services for purchases related to the Mason Municipal Aquatic Center in an amount not to exceed $205,000.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Council discussion? Let's call the roll.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Item 15, ordinance 2020-119, motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Outdoor Furniture Restoration for purchases related to the Mason Municipal Aquatic Center in an amount not to exceed $68,000.
You need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion?
Yes, I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
So the name of the company is Restoration Furniture Restoration. This is all brand new furniture. It's not restored. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all brand new. Okay. Any other questions? Let's call the roll, please.
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb, Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Item 16 is ordinance 2020-120. Need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Loth for purchases related to the Mason Municipal Aquatic Center in an amount not to exceed $30,000.
You need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt, please. Any council discussion? Let's call the roll.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb, Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Item 17 is ordinance 2020-121. Motion to read by title only.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Blinds Plus for purchases related to the Mason Municipal Aquatic Center in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
You need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Any council discussion? Let's call the roll, please.
Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
All right, we're going to have to put on the brakes and slow it down a little bit. That was fun to move quickly through those, but it's time for ordinance 2020-122, item 18 on the agenda. We need a motion to read that by title only.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
An ordinance authorizing the supplemental appropriations of monies, therefore amending the annual appropriation ordinance number 2019-145 of the City of Mason, Ohio, passed by the Council of the City of Mason, Ohio on November 18, 2019 for the year 2020.
Eric?
Kind of put a challenge there to move as fast as Jennifer did through those ordinances. I'm not sure I can do as well, but I do want to, these are housekeeping items that generally are kind of tedious to go through in detail. But what I did want to do is maybe provide some context. The next two ordinances are the city's annual supplemental and reappropriation ordinance. And if you consider at this time of year, the city has over 1,000 line items where expenses are tracked. And our finance director at this time of year is trying to capture a snapshot, even though payroll's still going on, expenses are still going, council's still doing items, is trying to capture the right snapshot to manage all those 1,000 line items in a way that satisfies the auditors, respects the dollars, but also cleans up the accounts for the new year. And even in the best of years, he's doing that at the same time that we're trying to get the appropriation ordinance, which is the third item here, the plan for the following 12 months all in place. So you've got a lot of departments, a lot of purchase orders on all those 1,000 line items. He's trying to get settled in a state so we can get these ordinances together. Out of those 1,000 line items, there are 30 line items in the next two ordinances that need some level of attention. And instead of going through those, well, let me back up. And Joe, this year, this is a hectic time for Joe in the best of times. When you consider a year with COVID, where tax deadlines were pushed late into the year, so that work was going on months later than typical. When you had CARES Act, millions of dollars in CARES Act funds, the city had to qualify. When the city, Joe and a business recovery team were administering hundreds of thousands of dollars in small business recovery applications, this task, which is difficult, putting that 1,000-piece puzzle together in a short time frame, became much more difficult. That doesn't make the details any more interesting. They still kind of remain tedious, but I do think that context and what the scope of what Joe accomplishes here should be satisfying. And I think the themes here, if you pull out the detail, when you go through the supplemental and the reappropriation, what you'll see in those is a reflection of early payoff of debt, part of which we were able to satisfy this morning. That required some supplemental and transfers. Our continued attention to set-asides, where we're trying to set aside dollars for future year expenses to start to even out those budget cycles. Things like equipment, paving, most significantly here, capital. Those require some supplementals or transfers to move them from the operating funds they're in over into those other funds. Set-asides, transfer of capital, CARES Act funding accounts for several of these. In order to qualify for the funding that was available to help compensate the city for the challenges of COVID, that required additional work, and some of the supplemental and transfers reflect that. And then small business recovery. The efforts that the city went through to help with a variety of different programs to provide funding incentives to both residents and small businesses required activity in the supplemental and reappropriation. And that, by large, and I know it takes a lot of words and some pages of detail, is where you see most of the activity in both the supplemental, which is Ordinance 2021-22, as well as Ordinance 2021-23. And I think instead of going through the detail, just want to express appreciation to departments who work with Joe to try and get us to this point in time where we can kind of get a snapshot, as well as to Joe Riegelsberger and all of the finance staff that put a lot of effort to get this puzzle put together. With that, those two ordinances are heartily recommended for adoption, and that will help Joe sleep better at night.
Okay, we need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? I'd just like to thank you for the clarity in the memos. They were very easy to understand. You took a lot of time. They were thoughtfully put together, but even though it is tedious, it was very easy to understand as a layperson reading through and not being, on the same team as Joe and you. So thank you for that. I know that took you guys a lot of time to put together for us. Anyone else? Okay, let's call the roll, please.
Member Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Right. Item 19 is 2020-123. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
An ordinance authorizing the reappropriation and transfer of monies and transferring other funds and appropriations for the current expenses of the city of Mason, therefore amending the annual appropriation ordinance number 2019-145 of the city of Mason, Ohio, passed by the council of the city of Mason, Ohio on November 18, 2019 for the year 2020.
Eric, do you have anything to add to this one?
Mirror image of before.
Okay, we need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Any council discussion? Let's call the roll. Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Item 20 is ordinance 2020-124. We need a motion to read by title only. All in favor? Any opposed? Jeff?
2021 Annual Appropriation Ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. Similar themes as what I mentioned before. I want to start out here with thanks to the Finance Committee of Council. Had some lengthy meetings later in the year than we often do because of some of the circumstances I discussed before, but put in the time to help staff, departments come up with a 2021 budget. A reminder for primarily the audience, the budget is not a reflection of actually the dollars the city has available. It is a planning document. Mason's budget continues and historically has been based on very conservative financial assumptions. And the way that ultimately works leads to a lot of the financial success that the city enjoys by going in the budget very conservatively. So you don't count all of your eggs before they've hatched, and you sometimes assume the worst in what type of expenses you may occur. Allows the city to both control the kind of the flow of finances year to year, as well as put us in a position to make very aggressive investments in capital, which is actually what fuels the economic engine that allows the city to reach further returns in the future, higher returns. So it's a planning document that really gives the signal to staff on what projects and capital projects continue to dominate the discussion of the budget are going to be priorities in the following year. So I've tried to tell the Finance Committee and tell Council here, really the budget, when you boil it down, is more about time sometimes than it is dollars, because it's directing where our time is best spent to drive some of the priorities of Council. It does not by itself bind Council to approve any of the projects in there. Neither does it bind Council to not add projects to it, which we've certainly seen this past year. Most of the items of any magnitude must return to Council through the course of next year for final approval. Typically, that's done through bids or vote process, where we bring back projects such as what Jennifer went through, equipment or capital projects that often go through more of a multi-year, acquisition, design, and finally construction. That being said, the 2021 budget includes over $34 million in capital for the following year. That's about $2 million than we're able to include in this year's budget, even though not all of this year's budget projects were actually realized. I'm just going to go through and list some of the highlights of what some of these projects are. Continued investment, excuse me, in State Route 741, various phases of that through design, construction, right-of-way acquisition. I think for the next few years, a lot of activity in 741, both to improve traffic as well as to invest again in future economic development. The Butler Warren Western Railroad Roundabout, Pine Hill Lake Park play structure, the turf and fence. A popular one that is in the budget for next year is the I-71 overpass signage, improvement of the lighting of that. Why did Ashley leave?
Yeah, I don't know.
That was all about.
You'll have to repeat that when he comes
I'll come
back.
back to it.
That's his baby.
And this one's about Councilmember or Vice Mayor Gilb, a dog park at Pine Hill Lakes Park. There is, I'm sorry, sometimes the inside jokes. That you will notice in the budget as a result of the disruption in planning and supply chain from the current pandemic, that the the workload shifted and several projects that had been anticipated in the 2020 budget are moving forward into the 2021 budget. That includes interchange landscaping enhancement at Western Rail Road, Indian Woods storm sewer improvements. That one actually may benefit because it would now be 2 phases of that significant project. And then other storm sewer and right-of-way acquisition for roundabouts on 42 and improvements at Sports Center Complex Drive and the Training Center. As I mentioned earlier, the I-71 overpass signage to improve the lighting of the signage over I-71 was removed from the budget. And you walked out when I was delivering the line. I'm sorry, everyone. Last meeting of the year sometimes. The budget also includes, and you'll notice this is continuing to accelerate, I hope, as a theme of the annual budget, is aggressive investment in the set-asides that we mentioned last year. The paving, the city had great success over the last several years with fleet. We're now in a position that sometimes when fleet, we're able to use more of the fleet capacity actually because we can get it closer to exhausting its useful life because the budget has set aside enough dollars that those unexpected expenses, when you're near the end of its useful life, you can accommodate those better. We now have a reserve or a set aside for equipment that allows us, excuse me, that all scheduled replacement equipment, so equipment that according to schedules should be replaced, but may still have useful life, we have enough dollars budgeted in that set aside that we could replace all of the scheduled equipment in 1 year if need be. Hopefully that won't be the case. That will allow us to continue to exhaust the existing fleet, continue to set aside funds, and reach a point that I think we are near, if not at, where each year we can budget a fairly consistent amount to go into that fleet set aside, and then continue to replenish it and spend it as it goes. The virtue of that is over time, that means that becomes a very predictable, even flow in the budget, and we don't have to worry about unexpected fleet replacement needs and not having funds available in any one given year. Paving program is our next project on that and is a much more complicated and a much bigger scope when you consider all of the lane miles and roads in the city and our intention to, and when you consider some of the roads that are aging out and the size of some of the major arteries through the city, those could consume entire years of a typical paving program. This year, we are hopeful, depending on the market next year and capacity, of a very aggressive street maintenance program with a base program of 1.5 million, a potential set aside of another 1.5 million, and another 1.5 million that we can, I'm sorry, a 1.5 million alternate, and another 1.5 million as a set aside to continue to increase that back balance. Depending on pricing next year, we'll determine what the actual paving program looks like. Any dollars not going towards that will continue to build the set aside. A tornado siren replacement, 2 tornado sirens, and anticipating a schedule, all the tornado sirens in the city will be replaced over the next 5 to 6 years. There are a couple of more open areas in the budget where, again, some of the time delays this year, supply chain and staff preoccupied with other priorities means that next year the budget will require some adjustment flexibility as we gain experience in things like the new municipal aquatic center. Some of the planning we anticipated was interrupted, and we will be continuing that planning so we don't have maybe as good ideas we'd like on what that budget will look like next year. So those are areas that will need enhancement or improvement. Fire department has had considerable success in reducing overtime, which has allowed us and continue to develop the model of a third medic, which has already had, in just the last few months, has had several market examples of success, both in reducing the response time as well as some specific favorable outcomes. Another area of the budget that will require attention next year as the pandemic hopefully begins to resolve is the community center. Continue to focus on membership and programming to return some of the revenue. The community center may be the single biggest financial impact of the pandemic in terms of revenue. Bringing that back into the popular destination it's been will be a priority. And you will finally notice that while debt will increase in order to finance some of the State Route 741 improvements, overall debt will decrease by almost 18.4 million, including early debt payoff of sewer bonds. That will be a major priority and preoccupy some of our finance expertise to accomplish that. But that is the next major enhancement as far as our debt status, is looking at the sewer fund. With all of that, I think while there has been disruption, there has been some anxiety this year based on the pandemic and timeframes. Staff have been dedicated, have remained focused on the financials, making sure they're returning good value to the taxpayers. And I believe the 2021 budget continues all of those trends, as well as helps us get back on track from some of the disruptions of this year. It is recommended for adoption, and the Finance Committee is recommending adoption as well.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any
Yes.
opposed? Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion?
Yeah, I had a couple questions on, Erica, can we carry this over to next year? That's what I wanted to hear you say.
You could
I
meet
wanna
on
see you
December
choke.
28th.
I want to see you choke a little bit, that's all.
Joking the whole meeting.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a joke. We need to pass this.
Anyone else? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yep. Mayor, as the chair of the Finance Committee and as the city manager has pretty well outlined, this budget is a core planning document that outlines projects and initiatives for the coming year. It continues to be very flexible. The general revenue projections are intentionally based on reduced amounts, zero growth, no state revenues. Funds continue to be set aside for reserves to level off future project years, and budgeting revenue less than likely and expenses less than probable is a consistent pattern that this council has always followed, and this budget continues to follow that same pattern. This practice and solid economic growth has continued to allow the city to be aggressive in capital investment and flexible for unanticipated opportunities as they arrive. The extraordinary disruptions of priorities that we saw in staffing and projects from the COVID-19 meant that the 2021 budget needed to be both a realigned priorities as well as catch up on its outstanding projects from the 2020 budget. There are also areas of the budget that will need further definition and adjustment next year as projects, as we've heard from the city manager, the Aquatic Center, Common Ground Park. As those come fully online, they're going to require some operational and staffing plans, and we need to be flexible in that regard when they come online. Continued disruptions to the supply chains, high demand in construction will require flexibility and nimble action for us to strategically move projects forward in the most cost-effective timing. I can say that the budget anticipates continued funding for drug enforcement activity, for paving programs, for Red Rhythm and Boom, for community event programming, and network maintenance, sidewalk repairs, and facilities paving. Over the eight major operating funds, the operating budgets reflect a 2% increase over 2020, and despite COVID-related economic disruptions, continues to include funding for set aside for the annual street repaving program, for the sustainability funds that we have, and for funding of city's capital fund items. And these are perhaps the most significant indicators of the city's continued financial success, which this budget helps to achieve. And for all those reasons, I want to thank the Finance Committee members for all their hard work putting this budget together. And certainly I'm pleased to say the Finance Committee unanimously recommends this budget be adopted.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes. Well, Eric, Jennifer, Joe, you can take a deep breath and a sigh of relief. That has been accomplished. The budget has passed. It's a huge undertaking for our staff. And while it was a wonderful learning experience to be in the Finance Committee meetings throughout this process, And it was a little bit of work. The big work was done by Eric and his team and our finance director. So we thank you all very much for that. All right, item 21 is old and new business. Who wants to go first?
Sorry.
Councilmember Stricula.
Just a couple of comments. I think we're all well aware that I was unable to make the special emergency meeting on November 17th. So I had a few comments on that. Least important, but at least worth mentioning first. Mayor, you mentioned I chose not to attend that meeting. But the truth is you had my availability. You knew that I couldn't be there and you chose to schedule the meeting anyway. Which begs the question, why the sense of urgency? Even a global pandemic, Mayor, can't seem to spur you on to timely action. If there wasn't a desire to push this through, then why the special meeting on an odd night at an odd time and virtually? We also had a downtown committee meeting earlier that day. There's a lot of emphasis on our committees. I'm not sure why it didn't come up in that committee meeting at all. If it truly wasn't urgent, as you said it wasn't, we would be discussing it tonight when everyone could attend with the public present. It just raises some very serious concerns. Why the rush? Why do we put that through? A couple comments about the meeting itself. Councilmember Honorlaw, just reviewing some of your comments when discussing the potential for $500,000 of small business relief in the spring. You called that a handout. And according to your calculations back then, it would have just been a couple $100s to a small business. I'm wondering what you would consider $2 million of taxpayer-owned land being given to one developer, or 15 years of tax abatements. You also said these businesses should be fiscally responsible. These are the businesses back in the spring and have 3 months worth of cash in an emergency fund. So do you think that a developer who develops land should have enough money to buy the land that he would develop on? Yet again, when discussing the potential for $500,000 of small business relief, you demanded to hear from the public. You were unwilling to do anything until you received public feedback. Mayor, you actually supported this when discussing, again, $2 million of taxpayer-owned land, giving it away. Not only do you not want to hear from the public, but you couldn't have been more giddy to get the process started. Our last meeting on November 9th, when responding to a request to disperse the remainder of the $163,000 of already approved funds for small businesses, the letter we received asked us to look at the businesses that were most vulnerable and needed it the most. But instead of focusing on those most in need, Vice Mayor, you mentioned this. You said, and I quote, we need to, and I quote, try to be inclusive and try to support everyone, not just picking out selected groups or individuals to receive those funds. Mayor, you also said it needed to be fair multiple times. And I quote, equitable to all. So I'm curious though, how fair and equitable is it to give $2 million of taxpayer-owned land to a single landowner who's only owned land in Mason for 6 months? Do you think if we truly wanted to be fair and equitable, that this process would have been done completely differently? The only thing that I'm seeing that's consistent with this council is its complete and utter inconsistency between its language and its actions. I've said all along, and I told Mr. Cohen this multiple occasions, that he's approaching this all wrong. We need to pause. We need to engage the community. We need to develop partnerships. We need to build a consensus around what we want downtown to be in the future. I've said it multiple times that the government has a role to play. And most of the time, that role is that we need to get out of the way. And this is absolutely us not getting out of the way. This is us trying to lead the way. Now, and we heard earlier from Mr. Blatt that we have a second proposal. I'm not going to reiterate what that is, but he does, in his letter, he does mention things. And I want to read this. I want to read this from his letter, if I may. He says, Mason does not need to offer tax incentives or other development concessions for multifamily development. Mason is the envy of all municipalities throughout Greater Cincinnati. Fortune 500 companies, new technology firms, countless others have all chosen Mason as their home, with top-notch amenities, highly rated schools, and high-quality restaurants and retail. Mason is one of the top choices for families to call home. Every home builder, commercial developer, and apartment developer is eager to have a project in Mason. The quote from Mr. Blatt's letter to us. So why is it that we're so eager to just give everything away at the first possible proposal that we'll see? We now have two opportunities on the table, two proposals. I can only imagine that there's going to be more on the way. We have an opportunity, we have an amazing opportunity to re-engage our citizens, redevelop those relationships that were severed from the spring, rebuild trust with the business community, with our community as a whole, and we're squandering it. And for what? I don't understand. It's time for us to stop talking about transparency and actually be transparent. If we're truly fiscal stewards of our taxpayer dollars, then I think we can all agree that we can do a much better job than what we're doing now. Maybe that's all I have. Thank you.
Member Stricula, I'll do my best. That kind of came out of, that caught me by surprise, I will say. I've heard references to process, and I want to assure the public that when a developer approaches the city, the process is to listen to that proposal and to go through the motions that are appropriate for that proposal. And we've been endeavoring to do that with Mr. Cohen for well over a year, probably a year and a half. He simply wants to make his proposal formally to council and have us go through the process with that. And so when you guys make references to process as if something inappropriate or untoward has gone on, or that we should be getting out of the way, that's precisely what I'm asking you and my colleagues to my left to do, to get out of the way and allow him to go through the process to work with staff to have a formal proposal to present to council so that we can transparently and openly with the public go through the process and take it through a vote. But unfortunately, we've been given nothing but unprofessional conduct in our executive session meetings, unprofessional conduct in our Zoom calls since this spring, leaks of executive session that have appeared on social media. I won't describe those, but you guys know that they have occurred. And so to say things like we're squandering and to be so cynical and so hateful in your commentary when we're all trying to do our best to navigate, to assume that I or my colleagues have impure motives. When someone approaches us, we listen to them, we hear them, and we try to develop a proposal so that the legislative body can go through it as a team and engage with the public. You have over and over again disparaged. You have made innuendos, if not outright, defamatory accusations of inappropriate conduct with this developer. And I am so ashamed at the way some of you have treated him on this council. And I'm very, very off-put by your comments today, Mr. Stricula. You are new. We are all learning together. You've been here a year, but to come in from the beginning with such a poor attitude and such a poor working style, we need to come together and try to rally as a group. We can do it. I've kind of lost track of all of the different comments you made, but I'm sorry. We tried to come up with a schedule and a work session last month that accommodated everyone. I don't know why you weren't there. You didn't tell me. And I don't know why you chose not to come or that you couldn't come. But the whole world doesn't revolve around you. And I know that our city manager was on the phone with all of us for 3 days trying to put together a schedule. And when I started this year, I asked for a work session once a month, if at all possible. Unfortunately, COVID knocked the wind out of our sails and we couldn't pull that together. So I'm just so disappointed that you chose to address us tonight with that attitude and those accusations. I hope that we can have a productive dialogue later as we go into executive session. I want to work with you. I want to build relationships with you and everyone on council and the people in our community. There was nothing unfair. There was no lack of capitalism. The free market was there and capitalists were competing with one another. And this particular person heard what we presented on the public record. Our former Mayor Kidd, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago said that we were looking at that property in that area for mixed use development and that multiple developers had recommended that to him. That was a public announcement or statement made in our meeting. He traded on that public knowledge. He competed for that, and he happened to be the first person to come and make a proposal to us. I believe we owe him the courtesy and every other entrepreneur that approaches our city the opportunity to make a formal proposal. And that's all I'm asking for from this council. I don't know if it'll pass. And to say that we're giving away $2 million worth of property, also not true. No one said we were giving away all of this stuff. And we haven't really had a good discussion, a professional, calm discussion on what that property is actually worth. Yes, it's true the city paid about $1.9 million for that property over the course of decades, but that's not what it is listed as being valued at on the auditor's website. So any reasonable developer or person is going to go to the auditor's website and see what the auditor values it at. So it's not valued at $2 million at this time, according to the auditor. But that's a discussion we need to have. And we also need to have discussions on what we want to accomplish. I'm trying to facilitate those in executive session, and professional conduct would be a great place to start. Councilmember Honorable, do you have anything to say since he was addressing you as well?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to stay out of the weeds. I'm pretty sure that before I was on council and before I was even on planning commission, I was coming to downtown committee meetings and talking about redevelopment of downtown and what the city would be doing and what role that would be. So I think I'm going back 7 or 8 years about being a part of those meetings and those committee meetings, sitting in as a public citizen. Because I live close to downtown, I'm concerned, you know, and I've lived here all my life. And I think I had someone make a reference once, probably 10 or 15 years ago, that lived in Mason and they called downtown Old Mason. I was offended by that because it's so dear to me. And so I'd like to be able to see all those businesses thrive down there. So I got excited 20 plus months ago. He said, Mr. Cohen said 22 months ago, he's been working with the city. And I know that just about every council member here has been a part of that discussion, whether in executive session or otherwise. The meetings we went to, the trips he took us on, which I think was in 2018, maybe it was 2019, where he gave us tours. So he's been in discussion with us for a long time. And I think I've heard every single council member said they would support something like this, one way or another. And so I think the biggest thing that comes into play, and I thought something I asked the law director about, is that this council passed a resolution, and we are now trying to have a good faith agreement with this developer. And as a business person, somebody that runs a couple small businesses, and some of the other council members here that do that, I think you would be appalled to do what you're doing now if it was happened to you, if you were in agreement with somebody to negotiate a deal. So as a contractor, if I'm in a negotiation with somebody, and to think that now that person would go around and do something else while we're negotiating the deal. And who knows what the terms of this is going to come out to be. I think more than one of us said the devil's in the details. Nobody wants to give anything away. It's like, what's the city going to work out with this gentleman? Who knows? But let's at least get something started for downtown. And I think that's what the majority of us want. I think there's different paths for it, but I'm sorry to hear what Councilmember Stricula said tonight and how he said it. But I think that we can all agree that we all want to see something happen downtown. We all want to be able to support those businesses. And we look forward to whatever the city can work out with this developer. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor. I would just like to say, well, I have two things to say, but Josh, thank you very much for what you said. I think that it's dead on. I think there's a lot of questions as to why we're rushing this through. And it's really not a free market when developers weren't given the opportunity to come forward with any kind of submitting any proposals or any plans. It's concerning.
A referral for proposal and RFP, but that's not appropriate in this situation.
I'm speaking, please.
Yes, but I just want to clarify, an RFP isn't appropriate in this situation.
But I think if we're going to give land away for free, we need to announce that, and we need to allow other developers or other individuals with ideas to come forward and propose them. We haven't done this. We've allowed one developer to somehow get his way in here and get now a resolution that now we were just told by our legal team that it's not appropriate to talk to other developers now because we have something in the works. Well, how is that possible? I mean, we haven't even allowed the public, the only time the public found out about this is during, an off meeting that Josh is dead on about, like, why were we so rushed to have this meeting when it wasn't a typical meeting? The public didn't have an opportunity to tune in. It's concerning. We also.
Are you saying it wasn't a public meeting?
I'm saying it was a public meeting, but it wasn't scheduled.
Yes, it was scheduled.
Scheduled at the last minute.
No,
and
it was not scheduled at the last minute, and we announced the desire to do it at the previous council meeting.
Well, we didn't, and it's problematic because the information that was given was very important, and it's very important that the public saw that.
And they saw that.
I'm not really
framed it.
sure how many people tuned in because, like I said, it's not a typical council meeting. There was really no need to have that rushed meeting like we did.
Okay, so again, you guys are indicating that we did something inappropriate that was against the rules or nefarious.
Well, I think
that divides this council, that disparages our city, and it comes across as if you're willing to hurt the city's reputation in order to
I'm trying to save this
prevail.
reputation from what you are doing.
No, we're not doing something wrong. We're simply going through a process, allowing him to create a formal proposal.
And that's perfectly fine, but I think we need to open it up. If you're giving public
we didn't announce
taxpayer
that
property away.
He asked for a contribution of land. We did not
like
invite
a list
him
of a number of other things, $1.5 million of tax abatements, sidewalks, connecting bike paths, paying for parking. I mean, it's.
Yes, but we did not invite him to come in and ask us for those things, as far as I know. I know this process started with the previous mayor, but we did not invite him to come and say, we want to give you our land in exchange for this. It's my understanding that he approached us. I think that's correct. Is that correct?
I think before we do anything and before we do some, before we're considering it, we really need to open this up to the public. We're really not.
It has all been open.
about this.
It has all been open once we left the executive session process. I mean, we were open in our last meeting. We had a work session. We live streamed it. It is recorded on ICRC. There was nothing done that was inappropriate. It was all done publicly and appropriately. You asked for work sessions. I gave you a work session. I want to have work sessions. Typically, there is not public comment during work sessions. Where's the public today? Well, we had a couple of visitors today, but are they communicating with us? They can go back and watch it on the internet. You can encourage them to watch it and catch up with us. We just begun the open process with the public.
That's fine, but I think that we definitely need to. We definitely need to engage other developers. I don't think developers realize that this land was available for them. I think that was off the table to most people. So I'm just saying we need to have a fair process. We need to be transparent, and we don't need to be doing anything behind closed doors. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Now I'd like to move on to my next.
1 second, before you move on to the next topic, I think Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Right, I just wanted to make a comment. I feel like more than one of you are saying we're rushing things and it's not transparent. Maybe the city staff or the city manager would be able to tell us, do you remember last year there was a committee meeting where Mr. Cohen came forth and made it public? It was over a year ago at that time. Can you give us the date that was? Maybe what committee meeting? Who was the chair of that committee meeting?
Give you the date off.
What committee meeting might have been?
I believe it was a downtown committee meeting.
Okay.
Probably
Would have
September,
been the chairman
October.
of the downtown committee meeting.
A year ago, chair of downtown.
Okay, so the council member Chance, was the chair. I don't know who else was part of that. I sat in on that committee meeting. And I remember when Mr. Cohen brought that forward. I remember the chamber being there, other members of the public all brought forth and saw this. And some of them even took, I think, some of his documents he had seen. So, I mean, for over a year now, his proposals have been out there to the public. So I'm not sure why anybody would say we're rushing something now. This downtown committee, we've got this downtown steering committee that's been working for a year and a half. I know COVID's delayed some of that. We've had a lot of work going downtown, and I don't think anybody that's been watching could say that we're rushing anything with this. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, can I speak?
In just a second. And I wanted to ask a question too. Have we ever as a council, or have any of us ever dialogued with council members or non-council members about using that property for anything else or gifting that property in any way in that area that we're talking about, the properties in question?
I think TJ's had some conversations.
Okay, what about in a work session last year, I think in June?
Okay, what are you getting at?
Now she's.
I
Did
mean,
we
come on.
bring things up? Did we say, I'm hearing new things today that I didn't hear then.
Can
And I think we've had other dialogues about potential usages of that property, and it wasn't an issue then, but now it's an issue. So have we ever had any discussions about other usages besides a mixed use development there?
I mean, you're really getting off topic here.
Well, you're not answering my
The point
question.
is-
I don't know what.
I think it's a great question.
Are you an attorney now?
You're assigning motive.
No, I'm
are
asking a
assigning
great question. Have we ever had a dialogue for any alternative usage?
We've had a lot of
properties
We're
in
going to
question.
Buy the property.
And
We
did
had it.
any more?
Now that you're
You're not answering my question. Have you ever considered using that property for anything else?
Me personally, I might walk my dog there.
No.
I'm downtown, I might.
As a city,
Well, I mean, that's
I don't
something
know
we're
what-
trying to do right now in the downtown. Right now, I mean, we are supposed to be reading all the information that our city manager gave to us in regards to any kind of information that was proposed in the past. And we're looking at possibly engaging someone to look at downtown and to come up with an idea for us. So, I mean, everything needs to be put on hold until we hire someone to do this.
you still haven't answered my question.
I don't know what you're asking.
Why
The
don't you
answer is
answer your
yes.
own
You have
question?
considered using that property for a different purpose.
What purpose?
Please tell me.
You tell me.
No,
I'm not.
Is it, are you like
you.
setting us up or something?
I don't know.
Have you ever
not
discussed
shaped
anything
like-
besides a
I don't-
mixed use development with entities outside of council,
There's a church.
with
right?
council?
I don't know what you're asking, so I can. She's just,
Well,
she's acting hypocritical, just like.
No, that's not
So
appropriate.
I just have a few comments. I wasn't going to bring this up. I expressed my concerns, through, we go and we hear from Mr. Cohen. Mr. Cohen says, hey, you guys need me on that wall. And you guys, if you guys don't have me, we can't do anything. He told me that. You want me to go through a
But
dialogue
you
I had with him?
shouldn't mock him.
He told me he
Please
was going
be
to be the
professional.
savior of downtown.
Please be
Verbatim.
professional.
Verbatim. I'll ask Mr. Cohen when he's here. He'll say he said that. So here's my concerns. You asked that we should do this out in the public, but then you, out of the other side of your mouth, you say, but we had to deal with everything in executive session. That's not in the public. I simply mentioned something to Mr. Blatt tonight, and Councilmember Hunterlaw is telling me I'm not allowed to talk about it. Where does that come from? I'm really concerned by it.
Well,
Confused by that.
You know where it came from because 4 members of council or the majority of council directed the city manager at our last
So my other
meeting
question is with
to
that,
work with him in good faith.
in the event that we sign this development agreement, does that allow us to seek any other proposals? Mike,
First, before the city could sign any development agreement, council would have to enact legislation to authorize that. And
But so
I
what,
can't really answer that because it would completely depend on the terms of a development agreement that doesn't yet exist. I don't know the level
okay,
of
so let me ask,
exclusivity.
let me ask that in a different way. So, well, I think you already answered my question, Eric, is that it's not appropriate to be talking to another developer for you guys because we passed legislation that you can only deal with this one developer. Is that right? You said it earlier.
Yes.
Council passed a motion
Okay.
authorizing staff to negotiate a development agreement.
So when you got that
Particular
letter
development.
from, was it John Henry Holmes? Hands are tied, can't do anything with it, right?
Council's motion directed me to negotiate with the developer, which basically says that's our preferred path. Staff would continue to do that.
Okay.
I would consider it if we were to, and I'm not sure I can draw the line or where that ends, but if we were now negotiating with another party, I would consider that at some point their bad faith with who.
Sure. So I want to make it very clear to everyone on council, my allegiance is not to one developer that doesn't even live here in the city. All right. So let's make that clear. My allegiance is to the citizens of Mason. All right. Not one developer that has been behind the scenes getting this thing done. Now it's tying the hands up of our city manager. They can't do anything. And now we've got an offer on the table that is not even comparing apples to oranges. You can't even compare the two. Here's a guy coming in wanting to pay fair market value. He has a proven concept just north of the property. He doesn't need tax abatements. He knows what to do. And now he's literally going, hey man, I want a seat at the table. And we're sitting there holding our city's hands, our citizens' hands, and going, sorry, you guys cannot negotiate. You guys can't do anything. And that is absolutely wrong. And I'm going to stand up for the citizens of Mason every single time, not some one developer that we seem to want to be in bed with. So here's the point. Here's the other side too. I am getting out of this. You talk about getting out of the way. This needs to be a community driven. And like I said, I've got a lot of concerns. I went through and I made a lot of them. And I plan on having a work session, or I plan on having a town hall meeting around this, because it's absolutely, we're going about this wrong. And I've said it publicly. You guys have heard me. I've said it plenty of times. If Jim, what's that? No, go ahead. Would you? I would. I said it publicly. If Jim Cohen's deal is the best deal, I will sign it right now. But you know what was brought to my attention? His deal's not the best deal. It might still be. If he can do it without it, let's talk about it. So I want to know, what do we risk? This was my last slide that and I want to know this. And I want you guys to think about it. And then individually, if you want me to send this to you and you guys can answer these questions, I am highly interested in what each and every one of your answers are going to be. What do we risk opening up transparent conversations with the general public? Have we done that?
Yes.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Before locking ourselves into something we can't get out of, which we've already pretty much tonight said that's what's going to happen.
No, that is not what occurred.
We haven't locked ourselves in anything.
They just sat there and told me that they can't go to this other developer and have a conversation.
We need to do one at a time.
We promised the taxpayers conversations with this.
Hold on.
Remember issue 4? Issue 4, remember that?
Yes.
Who led the charge on that?
The chamber.
And what did it pass?
The downtown committee.
80-20.
Okay.
Oh, I did do something good on the downtown committee. I helped lead that charge, so better pat myself.
Okay.
Right? So we promised taxpayers through issue 4 that we would talk to them and we would bring them to the table. We haven't done that yet, and it's wrong. Holding ourselves accountable to the taxpayers by properly vetting 2 projects that we have in the same area of land, one of which entails giving away land and tax abatements, and the other being a purchase of land and no tax abatements.
Why can't we have that discussion?
Removing our city manager, Eric, I respect you. You shouldn't be negotiating. What gives him,
we authorize that.
Here.
Okay, Councilmember Chance, hold on.
I'm not done yet.
You keep reframing things that are appropriate as if they're not appropriate.
Ensuring that we take in all things into consideration with how our projects impact not just that corner, but our entire area before jumping in with just one way to do it. That's wrong. Learning from our past. We have tried to do things in the past. And you know what happened? It was government driven, and we failed miserably. Because guess what? We're not the smartest people in the room, folks.
Are you talking about the downtown improvements before?
Yes. Well, we get 4 on-street parking in a plaza.
I think that was community driven, not government driven.
Well, that was community driven.
That was community driven.
That was community driven.
Yes, it was. Government funded.
You know what?
Community driven.
I cannot wait to have those conversations. Last and not least, this is a part that really bothers me. Hearing from our partners and their findings. Yes, I led the downtown committee. And you know what I did? I called a meeting every single month for a whole year. And what did we concentrate on? Issue 4. What did we do? We passed 80-20. We have a density. So now we have the ability to do something downtown. But you know what else I did? I engaged the chamber and the CDC. You know what the chamber and the CDC has right now? They have a 100-page document with feedback from about 250 stakeholders. How many doors have you knocked on? How many? You're asking me questions, answer. How many doors have you knocked on?
How many doors have I knocked on?
How many downtown business owners or stakeholders have you talked to?
Well, any that have come to our meetings and any that I've run into downtown, I don't
Okay,
have a
so why
number for
wouldn't we-
you. So are you saying that you're the expert because you've knocked on the most doors?
No, I know who is.
We haven't been given the information from the chamber that the chamber's been developing. We're happy to read that when they decide to set it forth, if they ever do.
You're the chair of the downtown committee. Why haven't you asked for it?
We've been
Did
asking
you
for
ask?
it.
When's the last time you asked?
Just the last downtown committee meeting,
The downtown committee meeting, it wasn't even brought up.
They couldn't, no, they,
It wasn't even brought up. This
You weren't there.
downtown development was not even brought up.
no, you're misconstruing the two different things here. You asked, what was the last time I asked the chamber about their committee meeting, or their group meeting where they were going door to door? Okay, and
No.
they could not, they couldn't even remember the name of it, nor could the staff of what that was.
Well, good. You know what we're going to do?
Can I finish talking? And
We're
so-
going to
can I
invite the
finish?
chamber to come here, and I guarantee they have a different story than you.
Okay, well,
All right,
I was
I'm
in
done.
that meeting. I was in that meeting, and Ms. Taylor wasn't there, but we were trying to remember what was that called, and we were waiting on it, and nobody could even remember what it was, because Ms. Taylor had said that they had gone to all these doors trying to get this information, and it got delayed.
Okay.
This was a year and a half. Okay, now COVID's messed some of that up, but we've been waiting and waiting for that information.
Have you
The
asked,
downtown
have you
committee
asked
meeting.
for it?
I just told
Absolutely.
you, I just asked for it at the last downtown committee meeting.
That's interesting.
They've had private meetings as well, and I know that I've inquired about it many times privately. It hasn't all been out in open session. I don't know that this is a productive way of getting your point across, but yes, we eagerly anticipate what it is they have to share. We're waiting. We just haven't seen it yet. But I don't,
To share it now? I mean, we're literally.
well, no, they can share their,
Understand what you have done? Do you guys understand what, they're not allowed
Well-
to share, because if they do share it, it's a mute point.
no, that's not true. You're
It is
acting as,
true.
we haven't even gotten through the legislative process, sir.
Bottom line is, it doesn't allow us, the legislative process, if what we passed, they are not allowed to even talk to other developers. We
Mayor.
just figured that out tonight.
Mayor, can I just add that can we remind the public that this developer owns a key piece of land?
He owns
on this
15% of the
property?
land.
Can I finish talking?
And these other
Can I
folks,
talk?
they can work right around it.
Can I talk without being interrupted for just a second? Count to 200 for me. So he owns.
Appreciate it. I
piece-
don't need to.
Please, please.
He owns a key piece of property there. And now the city owns the property next to it, and he's come to us with a development plan. If somebody else owned that, I don't care who the person is or what the developer is. And I told the Blatts that. I said, I don't care. All I care is about how many units we're going to put down there, because that East Main will go crazy with 100+ people living there. And I'm pretty sure, like in Common Beer, maybe Councilmember Stricula had a campaign rally there. So I know there's 3 members here that have are great ties with East Main. Councilmember Chance owns 2 businesses on East Main.
I do, proud of it.
Really like East Main, and this would help the downtown East Main businesses, all of downtown, but East Main will thrive with us walking distance of this proposal that you guys all said you'd support.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. I
second.
appreciate
Wait a
that.
minute.
Thank you for bringing that up. And I do. I mean, goodness gracious, I do own 2 properties. And so here's the funny thing about what you just said. So in the event that I have some self-interest model into this thing, why aren't I just running to this thing and saying, ink it, let's roll?
You said you would.
I did, if it was
Good,
the
you're all
best, if
for
it
it.
was the best development that we had offered.
Right.
Well, guess what?
We
Can you read?
we had one proposal come before us. We passed a resolution to be able to negotiate with them. We are currently negotiating. Where it goes, who knows? Once that's done, we can talk to any other developer out there. Who knows where this is going to go? The devil's in the detail.
We can't do that. Can we, is this a public record?
Member Chance,
This
I
is
think
public
you're, I
record
think you're I think
And I
you're,
do have something else here that was brought to my attention, where Jim Fox sent an email. Jim and Helen Fox, right? And he wants somebody to read it, and it pertains to this. I think it's a good timing. I don't know if it has to be me. Eric, would you want to read it? Would I want to read it? I can read it. Is that all right with you guys?
Hang on.
He asked for this email. If you turn it over,
let's wait till we're finished. I think you're preoccupied with two different potential deals. One has a bunch of moving parts because we don't really know what it is that Mr. Cohen has been doing with the city staff, but he literally cannot negotiate anything with him and without our authorization. So we finally got to that point. But Member Chance, we have to be able to decide what it is we want. Do you want a row of townhomes, or do you want a mixed use development with storefronts and apartments? Or maybe there's something else, but I think you have to decide the overall picture, not just the entire district, which, by the way, back to that committee meeting that you chaired where Mr. Cohen presented his ideas, you were really gung-ho on going forward with Mr. Cohen before that election. I encouraged us to slow down a little bit. I didn't think we could pull it off before the fall election.
Because we could have owned the property too.
Well,
We could-
yes, and we can't because some things went wrong with that,
Okay.
which we won't go into right now, but you know why. So, and we certainly didn't control it then during that meeting with Mr. Cohen. So you were very supportive of Mr. Cohen's project, but I remember saying, let's look at the district as a whole, but let's slow down. I want to take a comprehensive approach. And as we're looking today, fast forward, yes, he's asking for a lot of things, but this is an opportunity for us to make some much needed infrastructure improvements tangentially to that. And there's no reason why we can't look at the entire district as a whole. There's no reason why we can't try to figure out in a professional, calm, rational discussion what the possibilities are, but we need to at least go through the motions with his proposal and go through the legislative process with that
Why
calmly.
do that simultaneously with other proposals?
Well, the
Why
problem
are
is
we
he
doing
beat
it
you
with
to the
the phone?
punch and asked first before you guys set out an RFP for what we do own. So that's just the way the
Sent
cookie
out the
crumbled.
RFP.
We never sent out an RFP, which
Oh.
is a request for proposals. So you guys want it, but he came first. And so now we have to go through this process. If this process fails, an RFP process is totally possible.
So what we're
But
saying is one developer is the one that should tell us, you asked.
no, that's not
Is it
what
retail,
we're
is it
saying.
condos, is it mixed use or whatever it is? We have one
We have
developer
to
what's
be-
telling us what the right thing is to do. And that is fundamentally wrong. And I'm not
Okay,
gonna
well,
sit back. and
we're going to be here until the year 2057, and the next council is going to have the same
open up
discussion.
with everything that we're laying on the
It's
table.
been
We'll have
open.
people from Columbus.
But Mr.
Louisville,
Chance,
from Lexington, everybody here.
That-
because we are a crown jewel. We are different.
Yes.
We are leaders. We're not some other community that just wants to say, I am, well, look what he did here. I don't care what he did there. Very similar to this downtown stuff that somebody said, well, look what Lebanon did. I don't care what Lebanon did.
okay. The property's been there for decades. The desire to make improvements in downtown Mason has been there for decades. You enjoyed being in what you guys might call the majority of power on council for your first 5 years on council. It's the same. We happen to have a developer trade on public information that was given. He bought property, he controls it, he made a proposal to us. In my 4 years on council, I was ranked 7 out of 7 in power. I sat over there in that chair. I got picked on all the time, but I got a lot done. And you guys were in control, and you could have had RFPs for all of that property we controlled. It's been there for decades. So let's get through this process.
I don't want to get through this process.
Okay,
The
then
process isn't fair.
we already know you're a no then, I guess.
Not
So
fair.
you can just let the rest of us who want to work and are willing to work on behalf of the residents go through the process.
So let's
You
get
can
the
vote no.
here.
They're welcome anytime,
Right.
as you know.
Well,
And I really wish
we
you
will
would
do that.
stop saying that they are not, or that they were being excluded.
They have been.
That's not true.
You mentioned it yourself.
Not
that we
true.
went to executive session to get to where we are. In executive session, who's allowed in there? You said it verbatim. We can probably rewind and read it.
Not true. We did not exclude the public, but you have to have some dialogues in executive session. You don't want, well, then you're saying hypocrisy, sir, but you're wrong and you're not being honest. And we've had plenty of executive sessions over acquisition of real estate where you weren't saying that. All right. Apparently, Mr. Fox would like to. No, that's not what I said. I'm saying
You just did. I voted in executive session.
No.
Out loud in front of everybody.
we don't vote in executive session.
You
I'm
said what
saying,
you said what I said in executive session just now.
oh my gosh, this is just a vortex of insanity, Mr. Chance. We know how you feel.
Point of
but
order.
We've got to
Protect
continue
character.
forward. And I
We need
believe
to
Mr.
move
Fox
forward.
wants his email
Be
read.
leaders and move forward, please.
Mrs. Nelson, I got this. Thank you.
You don't.
Is it appropriate for us to make a motion to open up discussions that were had in executive session about this issue?
I think it'd be a great motion to make about this issue. How about the issue of the failed real estate transaction in 2018? Should we, if,
Well, I would
if someone
definitely-
would
I think like-
entertain I would entertain a motion to open up
So now,
executive privilege on that so that that could stop being weaponized in these discussions about why we don't control those two parcels that you're referring to. One is now owned by Mr. Cohen. And if you might be so brave as to make the motion to open that up, followed by a second,
Well,
take a vote, a majority of council can remove the barrier
what's
of
the
executive
purpose of that?
privilege.
What's your purpose?
We need to
Vice
be
Mayor?
more relevant, and I agree with you, Vice Mayor. We need to be more relevant and open up what happened in executive session regarding the Cohen property and the Cohen deals, because that is what's on the table right now, and the public should know about it.
You
So
could, but I think they do.
So I would like to make a motion to open up conversation in executive session regarding the Cohen property that started as of January 1st, 2020 till today. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
So we need
vote.
to have a roll call vote. Do we need a majority or a super majority to pass?
Simple majority of.
Simple majority. Okay.
Mayor, do we need to, I think you said January 20, I think the discussions on this property have existed well before January 2020. I came on to council in January 20.
That's true.
December 2017. Yeah, there was discussions back then. I would amend that motion to go back to the beginning of these.
Dude, I have nothing to hide. Let's go. I'll make that motion.
I'll make that.
I'll second it.
Okay, hold on. Let him finish so we can hear him.
I'll move to amend her motion to open it up, those discussions back to whenever they first existed.
Okay. And are we talking about
The property in question.
all of the property in question?
Property in question.
All of the, are we talking about the property we own or the property that we own and Mr. Cohen and Mr. Malhotra?
Since I came on council, there's been discussions about acquiring property there and developing property there, and I think public needs to be aware of all those discussions.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so let's hear from our law director. He's shaking his head.
Well, because this is a very complex thing that you're talking about here that's made up of many different pieces. One thing I heard was waiving the confidentiality of executive session discussions. That's one piece. There is an entire separate piece that is, and that's that. Let me back up. Those conversations are confidential because the law says executive session is confidential. You have another piece of this of a potentially related attorney-client privilege matter that I just think you need to be clear. Are you talking about waiving the attorney-client privilege with respect to the other matter about the property that the city tried to purchase? That's different than the executive session discussions with Mr. Cohen.
Well, I'm
I think
talking,
you need to be very clear about what you're waiving. These are, it's confidential, it's attorney-client privilege. And so you need to be very specific about what it is that you are waiving.
I am requesting that all conversation that went on regarding Jim Cohen's property in executive session can be talked about freely and can be open to the public.
Could we go over that again? Mr. Chance is distracting me. I didn't hear.
I said, I am requesting that we open up the dialogue and the discussion that happened during executive session regarding the proposal and the Jim Cohen property, make it available to the public to hear and know.
Is that clear enough, Jeff? Or do we want to say the CMC proposal, perhaps? I'm trying to think how far back it goes. We filled out, I believe we filled out forms.
I think somebody owned the property before Jim Cohen.
Oh, that's true. Mr. Malhotra owned it.
It really isn't. Cohen.
Well, let's not deflect from what I'm trying to ask. I mean, let's open up what we talked about in executive session. Why are we hiding it if now all of a sudden it's out in the open? Why are we hiding any information? Why can't we talk about it?
Well, you can always talk about things that occurred in executive session, but you have to take a vote on that.
Right, that's what I'm
remove
trying
a
to
barrier.
do. I've
Right, so we're trying to clarify as our law director is guiding us. We have to be really clear about what it is you want, because it has been complicated. We had, I'm trying to remember when we filled out these disclosure forms with, I think Mr. Cohen and CMC, when he first brought it up to us. So that goes back to the former council cycle when we had Mayor Kidd. I just don't remember the dates.
Well, for right now, since we don't know dates, let's just do January 1st, 2020. And if you can come up with.
Do we have to
dates-
know the dates, or do we just say all discussions regarding CMC properties?
I can only tell you, the more specific you are, the easier it will be to deal with this going forward. It also sort of begs the question, are you only talking about past executive sessions? There is a possibility that you could continue having executive sessions.
It's true. Yeah.
You need to be clear, are we talking about only past executive session discussions? I guess I would also, I feel like I need to say this. I understand the reason why you're entertaining this. I would just remind all of council, there is a reason why you can have discussions like this in executive session. And it's an important reason. And you need to think about it very carefully if you're going to waive the confidentiality requirements that are associated with that. It's perfectly within this body's right to do that. You need to think about what you're doing, and you need to be clear about what you're doing. And if your point is to release the confidentiality of all the prior executive session discussions related to the CMC/Jim Cohen proposal, you can do that. You need to understand that will not waive, unless you make it this way, that will not waive any other attorney-client privilege matters that may be tangentially related to this.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend Councilmember Nelson's motion just to open discussions in regard, as I understand, there was discussion about purchasing a property from a previous owner of this property, I think Ramesh Malhotra, and I would move that we open executive session discussions that were had about that deal only.
Well, that's really convenient that you only want to open
Is there
that.
a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
That's really
I think
convenient
that
that you're hiding
motion
this
to
from,
amend-
Vice Mayor, what are you afraid of? Why are you?
Whoa. I think the motion to amend takes precedent over the original motion. And so I'm assuming now it's time for a vote.
I'm sorry, do we have time for council discussion?
I
Should be council discussion right now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so
I have a question. I have a very serious question for Vice Mayor Gilb and Councilmember Honorlaw. Are you receiving direction from someone on this board right now, or someone outside via text messaging? That's interesting.
are you? Mr. Stricula?
I'm asking a question.
We said, are you? We said, no, are you?
No.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to, I'm trying to juggle a lot of balls
Way to
here.
deflect. But
Okay.
Go ahead.
Vice Mayor Gill made a motion. So our discussion needs to be germane to the motion on the table, which is to open up executive session discussions on the Malhotra properties only, which would go as far back as 2018 and 2017. So
Councilman
I'd stay in that scope,
on-
but then instead of saying that people have things to hide or whatever, there's time for another motion. But we need to have a discussion that's
One-
germane to the
one
current
more.
motion.
One more question.
Yes.
Mr. Forbes, would I abstain from voting for the releasing it prior to the time that I was on council? Or does it matter?
Not be required to abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Because as I understand it, well, first there was, Councilmember Nelson made a motion. Vice Mayor Gilb has made a motion to amend that motion. And if it is successful, I guess bottom line is no, you don't have to abstain. You are a sitting council member. You're allowed to vote on what this council wants to release.
Okay, thank you.
Any council discussion? Councilmember Bradford?
I think we're getting into quicksand. I hear my law director. I respect my law director. Okay. Well, thank you.
To hear that?
Yeah, I know. Okay. Obviously, there's emotions on this issue. I would, considering the time of night, you usually don't make good decisions late at night. I would suggest that we suspend discussions on the particular property. We go ahead and read Mr. Fox's, continue on with a little new business recognition of visitors, and go on from there. But I think you're putting this council and potentially future councils on a very slippery slope in regards to attorney-client privileges and that. And I think that's a bad scene.
Okay, so what is the protocol now that we have a motion on the table and now we have a motion to suspend the discussion? So help me navigate.
We had a motion, and then we had a motion to amend the motion. And Councilmember Bradburn, is what you were saying, was that in the form of a motion?
I'm making a motion that
I don't have my Robert's Rules
Okay.
book on me, but I would say this: if a council member is making a motion to suspend further discussion on a particular topic, as I'm sitting here tonight, I might be wrong. I'm going to tell you that motion would take precedence. And if that gets a second and it passes, then I think we would be finished talking about this.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Sorry. And Mayor, and thank you for bringing that up because I think we do need to have better counsel and understand what are the repercussions of this. Personal vendettas, you can smile all you want. I don't have anything to hide, but personal vendetta legislation, we have seen that not work in the past. So I respect you saying that. And I would love to set up a time with you to understand exactly what the repercussions, because it could be a slippery slope because we've all recognized that executive session, there is a reason for it.
So
But-
it's not bad or it is bad?
What's that?
So it's not bad now or it is bad?
I don't know what you're asking.
Executive session.
No, I'm saying, no, executive session to give one developer an opportunity to come in carte blanche and do whatever he wants, that's bad. What we deal with on executive, when we get together in economic development and there's an ROI attached to it and we're bringing in companies to discuss and it's a business transaction, you better believe it. It is very appropriate because I'm all about competition. Because if we want to tell everybody that, hey, so-and-so's coming to town, guess what? I want to compete. And I don't want everybody to know what we're discussing back there. You're precisely right. And I think there's opportunity and there's times to do it when it's appropriate and when there's times obviously to do it. And I think, we're talking about a slippery slope, I think we've been on one and what some of the discussions have been going on back there. So I'll second your motion.
Okay, that sounded very dark. Yeah, no, you're not correct. There's nothing inappropriate has gone on in executive session with our dialogues. And we've gone over that over and over and over again. Our law director would not permit that. And now I will say that we have a problem with unprofessional conduct in there. But as far as being in executive session for the reasons we've been in there, it has all been appropriate since I've been mayor. Okay, except for once, but we stopped right away because we realized we called the motion wrong and we didn't have a discussion. And that was in January or February. And that was a good catch of Mr. Bradburn. So speaking of Mr. Bradburn, he had a motion to suspend. It was seconded. And now if there's no more council discussion, we can call the roll on that. And that basically puts it on the table, right? Indefinitely until we bring it back off the table. Okay.
Correct.
All right, which could start a whole nother conspiracy theory from your followers, but hopefully it won't. All right, let's call the roll. Let's call the roll. No, it's putting it on the table. It's a joke. Let's go with it. We need to call the roll, please.
Minor hateful comments, they're not jokes.
We need to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunter Law,
No.
Mayor Grossman,
I'm going to say yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
All right,
Here,
I want to
finish.
understand it
I
more.
will-
All right,
Mayor, I wasn't done. I have one more thing.
okay.
Okay, so last week we passed legislation urging Governor DeWine to extend the ability of local governments to be able to hold meetings virtually and rather than in person. And I'm happy to say that House Bill 404 passed. And so we are now able to continue holding our meetings virtually if need be until July 1st, 2021. So good job, guys.
Anything else in old new business?
I have one item, Mayor, if I may.
Yes, yes.
New business directed my city engineer. Curtis, I've driven on 741 on the inward side of the, I guess I call it the inward side. Yeah, inward side of the new intersection you're getting ready to put in there. I don't think I've ever seen so many catch basins so close together. Can you explain that to me? Did somebody pull off the wrong book? There must be a catch basin every 10 feet for.
I'll let Assistant City Engineer.
Thank you. Oh, well, never mind. You don't have to go any further.
Pavement spread. I won't get into the details, but it's the amount of water that basically collects on the side of the road, and that portion is super elevated. So that's the low side. And with the pavement spread and the ODOT calculator, we have to put them about every 25 to 30 feet
Yeah, there's a lot.
to keep people from hydroplaning.
Understand. Okay.
Yes, but you were not the first person to ask.
Okay, I saw that and I was just like, phew. Okay, thank you. I've been educated.
I have something.
Yes.
I'm excited here in the budget that the bridge lighting is going to take place. Tony, we did something good in our committee.
Yeah, we
I
did.
think that's going to be very, very helpful. And like I said, I've had a dozen people say something about that. So kudos to staff and our committee, Tony. We did it.
Well, I think if I may, Mayor, Kurt, we're still praying from ODOT in regards to it. We still have to get approval from ODOT, but we have it in the budget dollar-wise.
I have a couple residents that look like they're online and look like they would like to address council, please.
Oh my, okay.
Good.
Yes, I know. I'm just looking at the clock and not, okay. And enough from the peanut gallery, please. It's almost 10 o'clock. Could we take 5 minutes?
Why don't we just get done?
Because Mayor Grossman needs to take a little quick break so I can miss the residents and you guys can continue without me. But I don't want to be falsely accused of not listening to the residents. So, or we could take 5. I think it's reasonable to take 5 for our staff as well.
Councilmember Bradburn said let the vice mayor.
Let the vice mayor.
Yes, he certainly can. I'm sorry I couldn't hear him because there's a lot of chatter on both sides of me. Okay, well, I'm going to take a quick 5. Can you?
Sure.
Okay.
I hear from our.
Was there any more old and new business? before I go, I wanted to just thank staff again for the great job at the reception and the mortgage burning ceremony. And I was hoping we could share some of their stories during Old and New Business today, because they had a lot of really neat stories, like running floppy disks from one building to another, and an office of engineers in a bedroom in a house it was repurposed. It wasn't like used as a house, and just all kinds of ways that the staff navigated outgrowing the old municipal building and moving into this one. And they had to move out of all the old offices in just one 3-day weekend and start fresh here. So anyway, we had lots of really cool stories, but we're out of time. So we will go on to item 22, which is recognition of visitors.
Mayor, members of council, I have a Mr. Mark Hackey that would like to address council. Mr. Hackey, you should be able to speak to council at this moment.
Yeah, hey, good evening. I was really hoping that the mayor would be around when I make my address. Is it possible to come back to me after the other speaker?
Sure.
Come back to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Randy Stegbauer would like to address council. Mr. Stegbauer, go ahead and speak.
Yes, this is Randy Stegbauer. I live at 5358 Hidden Creek Circle. And actually, I have a very simple request. I'm sorry, it's not going to be very long. This is, probably should have known or heard or known what you guys are speaking about here tonight. But truthfully, this is like the first time I've actually engaged deeply in it. And so I have a question, just a general question about, what is the property? What is the purpose and the ideas behind the proposals being proposed? And, in other words, you don't have to do that tonight because I know it's late, but maybe the next meeting have a little summary of what you guys are talking about, because I'm sure there's other residents that would enjoy kind of getting some background on that, and so we can understand it. Because right now on the surface, to me it doesn't look good to be negotiating with one person, because to me it sounds like if that proposal gets accepted, well, then there won't be any discussion. And so, like I said, I'm sure I've misunderstood a lot of it, but if I'm in that boat, I'm hoping anyway that I'm not the only one who doesn't understand. Anyway, that's my comment. Is I would love to have to hear and understand how I can learn about the entire idea and the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stegbauer.
Mr. Stegbauer, you might want to watch the last council meeting. What's the date of that? Do you guys know?
November 17th.
November 17th, because there's a lot of details in that meeting that might benefit you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. Mr. Hackey, would you, the mayor has not returned. Would you like to begin your address to
I
council?
do have Jim Fox's letter.
Yeah.
Why don't we read that? You want to read that?
Sure, I can read that. Do you want me to read that? I can, yeah. So this is addressed to members of council, proposed downtown development, and members of council. Helen and I watched the video of the special meeting on November 17th, 2020, regarding the proposal from Jim Cohen to develop a portion of downtown Mason. Unfortunately, we are unable to attend tonight's meeting to air our concerns in person. We have lived within approximately 200 yards from East Main Street for the past 20 years and have been pleased with new businesses and improvements that have occurred in our general vicinity, particularly in recent years. And while we're in favor of continued progressive development in the downtown area, we are alarmed with Mr. Cohen's proposal and its implications. Mr. Cohen is asking that a substantial amount of city-owned land be granted to him, that the city spend additional funds on improvements in the area, that he should receive 15 years of tax abatements on his development. Mr. Cohen cited somewhat similar mixed-use developments in Hamilton and Loveland and speculated that the city would reap incredible rewards as a result of his plan. By agreeing to Mr. Cohen's proposal, The city would be subsidizing a singular development and obligating millions of dollars in improvements. Helen and I strongly object to the giving away of property that is of great value to Mason residents and businesses. It would not seem prudent to provide one individual with such benefits without knowing what the return would be on the portion of the investment. Do we have an estimated projection on when the city would break even on our portion of such an investment? In the current economic climate and uncertain future, it is logical to burden our finances with no guarantee on return on investment. There are already retail vacancies within a few hundred yards of this location. And while it is too early to tell the negative impact of COVID-19 on any other retail businesses, perhaps the timing is not right to be giving away undeveloped vacant land. In the end, who stands to ultimately gain the most? The downtown or the developer? While Mr. Cohen may be reputable, there could be other developers willing to undergo a project on the city's land that would be much less burdensome to Mason taxpayers. It seems we should consider opening up the area in question for development proposals to obtain the most advantageous plan for the city of Mason. Finally, we strongly support soliciting input from the downtown community and Mason residents in general before an agreement with Mr. Cohen or any developer is reached. Sincerely, Jim and Helen Fox, 136 Kings Mills Road, Mason, Ohio. I'd like to publicly say, Jim, thank you for writing in, and my sentiments exactly.
Is there anyone else wishing to address council?
Yes. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Mark Hackey would like to address council. Mr. Hackey, if you'd like to go ahead.
Great. Thank you. For the record, my name is Mark Hackey. I reside at 3620 Dunlop Court here in Mason. Earlier, Councilmember Honolaw indicated that he had been briefed prior to the meeting that council should not address any comments by Mr. Blatt. Obviously, this took Councilmember Chance by surprise because at least one other member of council had been so advised. Is this another example of a council divided? Since this didn't come from the law director, where did it come from and why? Why would council members be advised to not ask questions in a matter that is so important for our city? We have one developer who wants the city to gift them millions of dollars worth of land, abatements, and improvements so that they can build out a property that they will make money on. On the other hand, we have a developer willing to pay market value for the same property, forgo tax abatements, and self-fund the improvements. It's absolutely imperative that council gets details to be able to make informed decisions regarding this property, yet someone is obviously attempting to shut down this discussion. This smells of more politics as usual in Mason, especially since you, Mayor, already apparently tried to circumvent any objections by supposedly trying to find a way to retroactively correct the fact that Mr. Blatt wasn't given any concessions being requested by Mr. Cohen. For the record, I'm not opposed to Mr. Cohen's project. In fact, I think it could be very good for our city. What I am opposed to, as are many of the voters in our city, are all of the concessions that Mr. Cohen is requesting. Mason does not need to make these concessions in order to have this property developed. It would be perfectly reasonable for Mr. Cohen to purchase the land and receive no abatements. Mason is not a city that is so desperate that we need to give away land that others are willing to pay for. One last thing, what is the process? What is our process for dealing with this type of situation? It sounds like we're floundering. Obviously, there are things that have taken place in executive session that we don't know about. Maybe some kind of a process has taken place there. I don't know. But I would like to know what our process is because there doesn't appear to be one. And it appears that as a result of not having a process, that there are people that are getting deals they shouldn't be getting and people that are being left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Mr. Hackey. Is there any other members of the public wanting to make any comments to council? Commissioner Grossman.
Blatt knows a lot about the history of this that nobody else knows. First, I want to explain about abatements and how they work. Abatements relate to abating tax burden. So Mason historically has analyzed abatements. And first you have to, before we talk about how an abatement is analyzed by Mason for economic development purposes, you have to understand how real estate taxes work. So there is a real estate tax on unimproved property. That is never abated. So when someone comes in and wants to improve property, the abatement is on the improved value. Now, what is it that is actually being abated? The primary abatement is the tax paid to the county. Now, I'm a county commissioner. We make money as a county commission for our county in Warren County, paying all sorts of things that we pay for in the county based upon a 10 mil real estate tax. You abate that. Doesn't go to you, doesn't go to the city of Mason, doesn't benefit the city of Mason. It goes to the county. And we use it for purposes of paying for various different services with the county offices, et cetera, and county facilities. So that's the primary tax that you abate is that. The other thing that you abate is the school property tax. That's the largest property tax that you get abated. But we never abate that in Mason. I don't know what the proposal with Mr. Cohen is, but I doubt that you will abate the school property tax. So usually what we have done in the past, and I believe that you all do this still, and I was the chairman of economic development for Mason for almost 11 years. I was chairman of the finance committee for almost 11 years. I was the former mayor and vice mayor of Mason. We always, when it came to economic development, addressed the school tax, property tax, by saying that there would be a special meeting with the school financial people and the person who was making a proposal, and they would reach an agreement with regard to payment of the equivalent of the school tax. Now, they're not actually paying the tax because it's actually abated, but they end up with an agreement that the schools come to Mason to, so they pay that. All right, now, so then what is the amount that is affected by Mason? Mason has one and only one real estate tax, and that is related to our fire services and our EMS services. And that is capped at 5 mils. I believe the effective rate is something near 4 to 4.5 mils. Is that right, Eric?
0.4 mils.
4.4 mils, right. And I was involved with that because I wrote the charter amendment that currently developed that, how we deal with that now. And that was passed overwhelmingly by Mason. And I know that none of you were, maybe Tony was involved with that. No, he wasn't. None of you were involved with that. So the fact is, what you really abate this is about 4.4 mils on an improvement that doesn't exist. And one of the advantages to that, understanding with real estate tax abatements, is that you probably, if you don't give the abatement and get the improvement, it may never happen. So you will not abate the underlying tax, which you still collect. But what happens in the future? If the person improves the property by $20 million or $30 million or something like that, in 10 or 15 years, you all of a sudden are collecting all of the tax on that money, and then you will forever collect it. So that's the first question. And so let's take what happens when somebody comes in with an economic development project, which I'm supposing that Mr. Cohen is saying this is. So the typical way in which Mason always analyzes this is it looks at what is the economic benefit to Mason that we're getting. And the typical thing that people come at with this is they say, oh, well, I'm going to bring in a lot of business, and that business is going to employ people, and those people are going to pay taxes, and therefore I'm going to improve your earnings tax. Because the primary way in which Mason makes money is through an earnings tax. A township makes money through real estate tax only. The county makes money through real estate tax and a sales tax. That's primarily the way we make money. Mason primarily makes money through an earnings tax. So every time you all look at an economic development matter, You are usually addressing the question of what's the earnings tax revenue increase of the proposal compared to the economic benefit do you give to someone, whether it be you provide them some property, you provide them some abatement. Now, I will tell you that in all the proposals we ever analyzed with regard to downtown Mason, none of them were ever justified by earnings tax increase, not one. I was here the whole time that we were looking at and working with the Downtown Mason Association and looking at the improvements that were being suggested in downtown Mason, principally in the area between Mason Montgomery Road and where Mason goes out to the west. That's the area that was talked about. We ultimately did like a $6 million project. It was not justified by economic increase of tax revenue from earnings tax. There was no economic development justification for it based upon that. I opposed it, not because I didn't want to spend money downtown, but because I didn't think it would work. And there were basically two ways. We hired an expert at the time that came into Mason and gave us advice. And the expert told us the following truism, that there are two ways to develop a downtown area, two ways. You either work with a developer and you develop it with a set project that he proposes, similar to what Mr. Cohen is proposing, or you make certain infrastructure improvements and sort of the field of dreams, and they will come. Well, that is what we chose to do way back in the early 2000s. Over my objection. I was not in favor of that because I didn't think it would work. Now, and I heard comments by you, Mr. Chance. You weren't around at the time when this occurred. You were not involved in council is what I meant. I'm not saying that you weren't aware of what was going on. You may have been. But it's true that at the time they wanted to put in 25 on-street parking places, and that was the primary improvement being made, getting 25. So they were narrowing the sidewalks. They were wider at the time. They were taking out trees to put in other trees, and they were then putting in 25 parking spaces. Now, we got 3 parking spaces. Why did that happen? Well, I know why it happened. Because in order to put on 25 parking spaces, which was the plan, they had to get rid of all these people's downtown property owners' curb cuts. So the argument being at council at the time, and I, again, was very involved with this discussion, I said, you will not get these people to give up their curb cuts and to allow us to put 25 on-street parking places on Main Street in this area unless you get a signed agreement from them, enforceable in law, before you commit the funds. There were certain council members that said, oh, we don't need that. I said, well, if you don't get it, if you do not get this agreement beforehand, they will not agree to get rid of their curb cuts and you will get nothing in terms of on-street parking. And that's what happened. They didn't get these people to agree. We didn't get our 25 spaces of parking, and we ended up with 3, with a development that didn't generate any new companies in reality of any note coming into downtown Mason. And that's what occurred. Now, I had suggested something different because I believe that we needed to work with the developer, and I felt we could do something with taking a large part of the south side of the street and developing. Ultimately, Steve Osborne said he agreed with me. Victor Kidd, subsequent to the whole thing where it didn't work out, said he agreed with that too. It didn't happen, and it wasn't a matter of not spending money. A lot of us wanted to spend more money. But it didn't occur because there wasn't the political willpower, and there was always people that disagreed with this. And of course, that's okay. We had an open discussion about it, and that's what happened. And I didn't believe that what we did was going to result in a lot of development in downtown, and it didn't. So what happens when you all get a proposal? And this doesn't happen with just Jim Cohen. This happens with anybody that comes in, whether it be on Innovation Way, whether it happens in any area in Mason. Typically what happens is somebody either buys a property or has an option on a piece of real estate. They own it, just like Mr. Cohen purchased a piece of property that he currently owns. And then they come together to Mason and make a proposal to Mason. And usually this proposal is done in executive session if it involves the purchase or acquisition of property, which there under law permits you to do that. It permits you to go into executive session to discuss that. And that, I'm assuming, is what you've been doing with Mr. Cohen or have done with him in the past, although a couple of weeks ago, I guess, or some time ago, maybe within the last month, you actually revealed what Mr. Cohen was proposing, or at least part of it. So normally when this occurs is that you work with that developer who owns property, and you then do what I think you've done, because it's been revealed tonight, at least to me, because this is the first time I've seen this. And the only reason I came tonight was because of the mortgage thing. But then it was mentioned that there was something where you all agreed that the city was to negotiate with Mr. Cohen to bring a transaction to you. Now, what happens with that? Does that mean you have to accept that proposal? No. Does that mean that when it comes to you, you'll discuss it? Yes. Does it mean that you can negotiate and decide on something else? Sure you can. Does it, there was another comment made here that somehow that the property you've got because you own property, that some people can't make other proposals for it. Anybody can make any proposal to you anytime they want to. Anytime they want to. Nobody's being precluded from that. Now, once you have something like in the case of Mr. Cohen, and you've instructed your staff to work on a deal, then there are some structures where it's difficult for you to, contrary to that instruction, to go out and do something that would violate that particular transaction. However, at no time, the Blatts can come in and make a suggestion and say, like they did, that they would like to buy certain property that is owned by Mason. They can do that. And Jeff Forbes gave you the correct advice with regard to that, on how to handle that matter. But you all have a complete ability to control what you do, when you do it, what interests you give to it, whether you decide that you want to give some benefits to Mr. Cohen like he's received from Loveland or from Lebanon or from Middletown or from Milford. And the Blatts, if I understand it, I believe that the Blatts are part of the Milford deal. I think they're part of the Loveland deal. So they actually work with Mr. Cohen on his transactions, and they're part owners in those transactions. So it's not that the Blatts are unfamiliar with Jim Cohen. They are. And if you guys want to give away property, you can. And there was a question asked tonight about that topic. When you all bought the Ramesh property and then you reversed that transaction, did you intend to give away the Ramesh property to someone else? Now, that's a rhetorical question. I'm not asking you to answer the question. I understand, actually, Chance, that you answered the question at a work session in 2019. But
Is this a husband protecting his?
no, I'm not protecting her at all.
Why are we talking about?
She doesn't need protection. I'm giving you, I came up here to
How
give you
long did you
history.
talk to the Blatts after they left?
I was out with them for most of the time because I was asking them about what their interest was in the transaction. You remember?
Why do you, what right do you have to do that? Why didn't you ask them when they're in here?
Well, I was not on council or asking them any questions, but I asked them questions after they left because I wanted to know whether or not they were involved with Mr. Cohen and other transactions, because I thought they were.
They'll say that's what the discussion was about.
You can ask them anything you want.
Okay.
So here's the question, Ashley. Do you want to answer a question about giving away property?
Yes.
Okay. Did you want to give away property to the art center or to do you want to give away property to some theater?
Center to this
No.
downtown.
Is that what you wanted to do with the Ramesh property?
No, we were.
Did you ever discuss doing that with the Ramesh property?
This is very inappropriate.
No, I'm asking you the question, Diana.
is
Did you want to do it?
inappropriate.
You were on, you created the Arts Council Board.
Let me ask you a
Mike is the
question. Were
chair,
you
right?
at the steak dinner having steak and wine that the mayor had admitted with Jim Cohen? Were you at that dinner with them?
What dinner are you talking about?
Well, the one that she admitted, I mean, in front of everyone. that
I
she
was at
lovely
one
steak
dinner
and
with
wine.
the Cohens, which they invited us to, where he discussed the project that he's discussed.
And
with
I
you.
think it's very inappropriate.
And
You
here's
never
what he-
sat around and talked to us, and all of a sudden you're here defending this whole
No,
project.
I'm not defending anything about the Cohen
me.
project. I'm not involved with the Cohen project. However, what Mr. Cohen told me is that he met many times at the dinner. He said he met many times with Victor Kidd and with Ashley Travis, and that they discussed his project. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. He can do that with the mayor like he did it once with Kathy. But in addition to that, before Kathy was the mayor, he was talking to other council members when you and Ashley and Barbara and Victor had a 4-vote body. And in addition to that, he
Grossman,
spoke.
that's irrelevant.
No, it's not
It is
irrelevant. My only.
Because you conceive it in your mind
What
that there's a 4 and there's a majority, and like you guys like to play politics. This is why I started People Over Politics, because of precisely people just like you. Me and Mr. Kidd that you're referencing, we voted 50% of the time against each other on some very big.
So when you voted, when you decided to purchase the Ramesh property, was it your intent to give it away?
Give it away to who? We were buying the
I
property.
said, was it
Never-
your intent?
we
Was it your intent? Was it your
never-
intent, Diana, to give it away?
No.
Why would we give it away?
Okay, well, because.
What's the point?
Okay,
I mean,
did you intend to give it to the art center? or to
absolutely
the-
not. That property is
Okay.
not even large enough for
Okay,
the arts
so
center.
here's my point. It doesn't, yes, I don't know what's large enough or not large enough. I just asked the question. So
My answer to that is no.
okay, so what did you want to do with the property?
I have no idea. We never got.
What, you wanted to, you did buy it
Listen,
and then you
because
decided, no, wait a
There was a
second.
bunch of
You
personal
all-
vendetta
you-
legislation.
There's no vendetta
that
about
the
anything.
Channel 9 News, that the Ohio.
What are you
Ethics
talking
Commission-
about personal vendetta?
Because that's why we
come
didn't buy the.
on.
What are you talking about with a personal vendetta?
The vendetta that you have.
What vendetta are you talking about?
Oh, please.
About
I'd like
what?
to make a motion to
so-
adjourn. We're not getting you
No, we're not.
anywhere at this
I'm not,
point.
well.
Excuse me, there's a motion on the
There's
table. Can I
been-
get a
So
second?
here's what I'm going to ask.
I'll second that.
Second.
Can we have a vote, please, Mayor?
Vice Mayor.
Actually,
I thought
I'm
you had an
deferring to the
executive
vice
session after
mayor.
this, don't you?
I passed the baton to him.
We're hearing from,
We have it's on the table.
Well, first off, and a motion to
Hold on.
adjourn cannot occur when somebody else has the floor and you've given me the.
Is this a conflict of interest?
There's
that
no
Here,
conflict of
you're
interest.
county commissioner, you're also the husband of the mayor.
That's true. And I
You're
really,
defending-
I'm really, obviously Kathy's probably
Mayor.
really be angry with me tonight, but here's what I want to say, Diana, please.
Mayor, if I
Mayor.
might,
Mr. Ford,
Mayor,
I'm
I'm gonna, Vice Mayor, I'm sorry. We've discussed this, I don't know how many times. You cannot make comments directed to individual members of council. All the comments need to be directed to the chair. I would just interject that at this point.
Okay, so let me try to wrap this up because I know that you all are, you can answer these questions any way you want to, but you guys publicly bought, you enter into you voted to buy the Ramesh property. Now, when you did
That
that,
was
wait, okay.
That was unanimous.
Wait, hold on.
7.
You know what? I'm going to make the point that I'm going to make, Ashley. You did not go out and give other people the option of doing that. You did not go out to other developers and say, would you like to buy this property instead of us? You did not go out with them. And what happened was, I'm assuming that you were in executive session, you discussed the purchase of this property, then you came out of executive session and you voted to buy it with almost no public discussion. And yet I heard tonight that with regard to the Cohen transaction, wait, hang in there. I'm going to finish this quickly.
There's a difference between giving property away and purchasing property.
Okay, hold on, because, but you understand, Member Nelson, what I'm talking about is the fact that there's a discussion that somehow, if there is city property or city transaction for a property, that somehow you have to always open this up to other people to negotiate or deal with it. The whole purpose of an executive session involving the purchase or the sale of private property is because you want to keep, if you go out in the public and discuss it, that you can jeopardize your ability to make a transaction in the public interest, and jeopardize your ability because somebody else might come in and undercut you or deal with it in a different way. But there's always the option with regard to property that's out there for anybody to make a transaction with regard to it. You don't prohibit that.
Just,
You don't preclude people from doing it. So back to the transaction with the Ramesh property.
you seem to
You
know
guys,
about what we discussed in executive.
I don't know anything about what you
Why
discussed
are
in
you
executive
asking
session.
about-
But I was in executive session with
Executive-
Mason many times, so I know generally how it works when it comes to property transactions. So here's the question. When you bought the Ramesh property, are you saying that this council had no idea how it was going to deal with the property? In other words, that you were
Why are
buying,
you
wait,
here?
wait a
I
second, wait a
asked
second.
why
You
you're-
guys,
what is the
you
purpose
guys
of
all,
your-
wait.
your presence here?
Here's my point. You all voted to buy Ramesh property, and you then authorized the city manager to enter into a contract to purchase the property, and it was an installment land contract. Now, that became public, and I only found out about that when you guys did it, and that became public. So here's my question.
Really?
What was your purpose in buying the property? What was its use?
To control the property, just
For
like.
what purpose?
I don't know. We never
didn't
got to
have-
that
You-
point.
Okay,
Never
so,
got
so,
to that
okay, so is
point.
that the answer? Is the answer
Oh.
that you bought the property without having any idea of how you were going to use it?
No, we knew exactly. I mean, we knew what we wanted to develop downtown, and if we control
Wait.
because guess what? No, I get to answer your question, correct?
That's fine.
All right. So yeah, we're buying this property just like we buy a lot of property, control what goes there. So my intentions, if you guys are trying to suggest, I don't know what you're trying to suggest, but that's you. You're an attorney. You like to stand up there and put people on trial. And I'll tell you right now, I would buy it again tomorrow to control the property, because guess what? Now we're sitting here being strong-armed by a developer that's saying, well, look at me. I own this key piece.
Okay.
And guess what? We're all sitting here handcuffed. Because we don't own the property.
Was
Bought
the
property, control it.
So the
Dominate
purpose,
question.
is it true or false that the purpose of buying the property was to do a mixed-use development like Mr. Cohen's?
I have no idea.
Well,
We never got-
that is
It could.
what,
I would.
but that is what was publicly
Tom, you
stated
need
by
to-
the mayor.
You need to realize that I am a business guy, right? And I am a business guy. I'm not a politician. I don't sit up here and try to play politics. So what I would have done is what I am proposing we would have done. I've said it openly. I'll say it again. If Jim Cohen's deal was the best deal, let's roll. But now we are being strong-armed by a developer, making it seem as if it is the best deal because he owns 15% of this property. His property value is roughly 400,000. Ours is 2 million.
Well, wait.
We've been proven tonight that we can do another development that doesn't need his property, and we should vet that out. We should have a process. Do you not agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with that.
You
Now,
do
let me
agree with that.
let me go
So
back.
do you
and-
think we currently have a right process in play to do
Yeah,
that?
sure you do. So now let's go back. Let's go back to
We
answer
do?
two questions. Yes.
Tell
So
me what
let's.
that is.
I
Enlighten,
already will.
Mr. Grossman, you know a lot about this stuff. So enlighten me, what is the process?
Will you let me do that?
Tell me.
Okay. So
Can you do it within?
in 2018, Mr. Kidd announced in a public document that the idea for the property that Cohen owns and that Ramesh owned at the time was for a mixed-use development. So now I'm assuming that what you're saying is that you purchased the property for that purpose. Now, I don't know whether that's the case or not. I've asked you multiple times if that's what your idea was, but now let's go back for the question you asked, and let's go back to the question. You just said that this property was worth $2 million. Are you talking about the property that Mason purchased and that Mr. Cohen would like to do a transaction on? So let's assume that that's what you're talking about. So and I heard the discussion about that tonight. Is it true that the property that is now vacant land, no homes, no buildings, is worth what the value that Mason paid for it? So when Mason paid for it, and I believe some of this property was purchased when I was on council. No, and I will tell you what I'm saying is that I was there for it, Mr. Chance. I was present when we purchased the property. The property had homes on it. No, I was present. The property had homes on it. So there's a distinction between property that's vacant, which it is now, because when we bought the property, we bought it so that we could make certain road improvements or have the ability to put a road into Kings Mills. And then when we purchased the property with homes on it, the property was valued with homes. Then we removed the homes. Vacant property, which it is what it is now, does not have the same value as a piece of property with an improvement on it. So when you are you claiming that the current property owned by Mason is reflected by what it was purchased when it had improvements on it?
I'm claiming we paid 1.9 million.
Okay, but that's a different
And
answer.
what I am claiming also, and I will make this public record, these exact same questions that you're asking me is from an email from Mayor Grossman. I have it right here. And
Yeah, so what is your point?
I don't find that that's not ironic.
Well, Mr. Chance, my question is this. If you're claiming that the value of real estate is the same with regard to what Mason paid for it when we bought it with a home on it.
Was that?
And now, what's that?
How long ago was it that we
There
bought?
were multiple properties paid for at different periods of time. Some of them were purchased when I was on council. They all had homes on them, every single one of them.
So
They were valued.
So let me ask you something, Mr. Grossman. Do you think then if we have a proposal on the table, do you think we should take one just because you're sitting there and flippantly saying, well, it's not worth that?
I'm not saying anything
We should
flippant.
just give it away, but we have a proposal on the table that says, I'll pay you guys fair market value.
I think
Which
you should
one do you
consider.
think
I
is
think you
better?
should consider it.
Okay, good. I thank you for that. I totally agree.
I think you should consider it. So now let's go back. But it is not true, Mr. Chance, that it is not true that the value of vacant land.
Just because you're a county commissioner doesn't make you a county.
I'm telling you how real estate is valued. Real estate value that is vacant land has a different value than improved land. Because the improved land is valued, say, if it's got a home on it, you value it based upon the improved value. If you only have vacant property, you value it based upon the vacant land value. So you have to take a look at what your land currently is. What is it? It currently is vacant land.
The value of that property is what someone will pay for it.
Well,
you don't know
of course
that.
that's
I
true.
don't know that. No one up here on council knows that. No one here knows that. The value of that property is what somebody pays for it. So you know what I'm asking to do? Let's get the private sector out there. Let them determine the value, not you,
So
not the county auditor, not us.
Yes, when you appraise property, there are various techniques by which you use to appraise property, and appraisers have various standards by which they do appraisal. And they look at your property and they look at its highest and best use, but they're looking at vacant land. So my only point with regard to that, Mr. Chance, is because you mentioned that the property was worth $2 million. Is Mr. Blatt, wait a second, is Mr. Blatt offering you $2 million for that property?
I have no idea because we haven't had the opportunity to understand.
I mean, has he made an offer to you?
Value.
Has he made an offer to
He
you?
said fair market value.
What is that?
I don't.
But it's not the improved value and it's not what you paid for it with a house on it. That's all my point is.
All right, Tom, we really appreciate you coming. I
Yeah,
think we
but
should
you know
be
what?
wrapping
You
it
know,
up. We have
Diana-
executive session. We
Okay.
appreciate you coming out and enlightening us on all this.
Okay, well, you know what? I will finish then. All right. So here's the point that I'm making. And you guys have every right to discuss in public with the public the various issues that you come up with. But here, when you have a project, and I was involved with this, Diana, Member Nelson, I was involved with this for 11 years on council. I'm very familiar with the projects that you look at. I'm very familiar with how you analyze them. That's why I came up to talk to you tonight and to explain tax abatements, to explain real estate taxes, to explain, okay.
I'd rather a developer, I don't need you to explain that to me. I'd rather developers that are interested in developing that land come and tell me that. I don't need you.
So every single time, Member Chance, every single time a developer has property and comes forward with a project to council, you guys analyze that project, and you're going to do that with Mr. Cohen's project. You're going to do that. That does not, that process is the same process we've used in Mason the entire time I was on council.
That is
Nothing has
perfect.
changed. Nothing has
I've never
changed.
been through, I've never done this process in my 5 years.
What process is that, Mr. Cheney?
Well, you're just telling me the process that we're going through right now.
Are you
is the exact same
are you
process.
saying that when there's a developer that comes in and does the kind of project that is being suggested by Mr. Cohen is a process that is inconsistent with how Mason has handled this in the past? It's
I
not.
don't know what you're asking, but
It's not inconsistent with how Mason deals with it in the past.
I would say you want.
And you're not, and your hands are not tied.
I would say no. I would say no.
Okay, so tell me how, when.
Can I
and
make a
that's-
motion to
and that's-
adjourn,
That's
Vice Mayor?
So
Can
now
I make a
here's,
motion to adjourn?
I would ask Mr. Grossman to wrap up his comment.
yes, I'll wrap them up then. I will wrap them up for you.
You don't know that.
All right. Mr. Member Chance? All right. Look, I have no disregard for you or for Diana Nelson. I have no disregard for Mr. Stricula.
Why would you
I have been involved with Mason Council far longer than any of you have. I've been involved with every economic development project that Mason considered for the entire time I was on council. I'm very familiar with the process. There's nothing about the process that you're going through with Mr. Cohen that is inconsistent with the process we've always followed. And so now I will ask Mr. Forbes, is that true or false? Is it true that the process you're going forward with Mr. Cohen is the same kind of process you've always done?
Developer comes to the city, offers a proposal, then the city considers that proposal. That's very similar and consistent with how you've done other proposals in the past.
Right. And so in other words,
Okay, so
the Cohen, wait a second, the Cohen proposal and how it's being dealt with and the process you're going through is the same process that I went through with council on every single economic development process that ever was considered by Mason. There's nothing different. There's nothing different about it. Thank you.
Vice
Thank you,
Mayor.
Mr. Grossman. Is there anybody else that wants to address council and recognition of visitors? Seeing none.
Vice Mayor.
May I have a quick?
I want to entertain a motion to go into executive session, but
I'll
before I do
second
that, I
that.
want to say that we need to recognize there's a birthday among us. And
Vice Mayor, real quick.
happy birthday to
Before that, Vice
our
Mayor,
mayor.
I have a quick comment just on,
Sure, okay.
was it just, sorry, just briefly,
Yes.
right? When the comments that were made were based on developments that we've done as a whole. I think there's a major difference between an industrial complex on the north side of town to something that will change the face of our downtown. There needs to be partnerships. There needs to be engagement. It's a major piece of development. We're totally doing it the wrong way. It's completely different than anything that we've seen. Thank you.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
I just wanted to add one brief explanation to Mr. Hackey as well as it came up here. Councilmember Hunter Law and I did speak before the meeting. I didn't brief all of council. The question was raised that if another developer were here wanting to discuss their development, I told him that anyone can speak to council, that I did feel it would be inappropriate to negotiate, either a council member to be negotiating or to negotiate it in this form when we had already had a direction to negotiate with someone else. I did not have an opportunity and I didn't brief everyone on that. That was my response to a question.
Very good. So I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing acquisition or disposition of property. But before we do that, I'd like us to recognize it's the mayor's birthday, and please join me in singing happy birthday to our mayor. Happy
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kathy. Happy birthday to you.
more. Do we have a
Thank you.
executive session?
Second.
Second. All in favor? All right, do we have
Yes.
a roll call vote? Let's do a roll call vote.
Roll call?
Roll call.
We need a roll call. Roll call, he says.
He's calling.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Maybe. Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
5-minute recess before we go in.
We'll have executive session out here.
Oh, you got stuff? Okay.
I know.